Hello, good evening and welcome ladies and gentlemen to another epic and exciting round of intense racing action in the SimRacing International Thursday GT3 Championship Season 12 as brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC known as iRacing. That's right folks, we're back for another round of brilliant battling action, and in round 2 of 10 of this season we have made away from Germany to none other than what is the venerable Belgian tarmac that roars its way through the Ardennes Forest. It is the one and only Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps, everybody's favourite Belgian circuit without a doubt. 4.35 miles in length, it is a circuit which is a household name around the world, with 19 corners marrying together a wide variety of corner types, elevation changes and straights. It means there's very little here untested when it comes to our driver's abilities, and with most of the circuit offering overtaking opportunities as well, and it being such a popular circuit, this is going to be one of those circuits where everyone has the right to show their love for the Belgian circuit, but who exactly is going to love it the most as they look to secure victory? Well, that's what we're exactly to find out today as we get ready to go racing once again. And whilst this circuit may be a very different circuit compared to the circuit it originated as, being the best part of what was over 12 miles making its way around the local countryside through the forest and also through the local villages, well, safety comes first, and for our drivers today, safety could be the key theme as well, because we have rain on the cards, and we'll tell you a little bit more about that shortly as we get ready to go racing. But where are my manners? Allow me to welcome you all to this live broadcast from Circuit Side as you tune in tonight and are tuning in currently to the Superstars split. One of our 2 splits, of course, for Season 12, the other being Masters in the very capable hands of none other than Chaz Draycott and, of course, Darragh Thacker. But meanwhile, in Superstars, you have myself. My name is Paul Walsh, and I shall be your commentator and coverer for the entirety of this season. And I'll tell you one thing, ladies and gentlemen, if our season opener last start at the Hockenheimring was anything to go by, we are in for a treat today as you catch this broadcast live from Circuit Side on the one only place you can do so. And as of course on a weekly basis, none other on youtube.com, and search for SimRacing International SRI. And if you're not subscribed, feel free to subscribe today so that way you can stay up to date with all our latest broadcasts on a weekly basis. But as we come into this round, well, we definitely set the scene last time out in Germany. We saw some superstars, we saw some absolute heroics, and we saw an incredible battle for class victory in the club class. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's bring you up to speed from what we saw in round number 1, and exactly what it does mean, of course, as we make our way into this round. So first up, of course, we make our way back to the calendar and we give you a reminder of the season as it lies. We had a pre-season event on the 26th of March at Sebring International Raceway. No points up for grabs there. It was all about bragging rights and a bit of pre-season testing. But we opened up with a bang last time out on the 2nd of April, indeed the day after April Fools, but nobody was fooled there as we made our way to Germany for the Hockenheimring Baden-Württemberg Grand Prix circuit in the German state of Baden-Württemberg. Well, what exactly did we get to see? Well, in the Superstars, at least, what we definitely got to see, and that'll be our focus, of course, for these broadcasts, was that it was 3 very unique stories across the field. Firstly, at the very front of the field, Milton Tomlinson-Dennis picked up a grand slam in the Pro class, the top tier of our classes, by dominating qualifying by almost 3/10 over Justin Hembery, and in the race, well, it was a big instant towards the back end of the top 10, and some could say that perhaps set the narrative of the top 10 for the remainder of the day, but either way, it did seem as though the man affectionately known as MTD, or Milton Tomlinson-Dennis in full, was going to be unstoppable in the end. Because whilst he did have Nils Bauckhage, who was able to move into second place early on, right behind him for the opening stint, the gap gradually opened up and it never came down below 1.5 seconds after the pit stops, and it did mean come the very end of the race, MTD was able to take his first win of the season and making up for all the bad luck, it would seem, from season 11. Meanwhile, in the interclass, where it was the battle of 3 Scotsmen, or that was the way it was going, with Jared Love taking the victory after taking class pole by only 0.5 over Luke Van Goertel. However, on the open lap, whereas the instant affected Van Goertel, it did not affect Love. Love was able to avoid the chaos coming out of turn number 4 on lap number 1, and therefore he was able to gradually break away and control the opening stint. The second stint, was he in control of that? Well, initially he was, but then a fellow Scotsman, Carl Roy, started to close him down quite rapidly, and what it meant was on the final 5 laps we got to see them go toe-to-toe, albeit Roy couldn't quite get fully alongside, but he came very close to doing so, and therefore it was none other than Jared Love who took the win, but knowing that he was under a lot of pressure, and if it had not gone wrong for Ross Young on the last couple of laps, could we have seen an all-Scottish podium? The first time in SimRacing International history would have seen that, but unfortunately a spin for Ross Young relegated him out of a chance for a podium, and instead it was Nicholas Carlson who took the final spot on the podium. Indeed, remember, he had to recover from a lot of damage in the opening stint of the race, and he somehow managed to resuscitate his race back to a 3rd place. But meanwhile, in the club class, well, stories of battles, how about this? Try it on for size. The club class was exceptionally tight in qualifying. We had a their dominant pole sitter, Steve Hughes. He took pole position by such a margin in the end that everyone had their jaws dropped to the floor when it was almost 4 tenths faster than Adam Lynch's second place time. But meanwhile, third through to 15th was separated by not even a second. It was 9 tenths of a second. The club class is so close on pace based on the Hockenheimring, and in the end, Jack Giles took the win from 12th place. However, how exactly did that happen, many would ask? Well, to be fair, if we were to tell you the whole story, we would be here for at least hours to resuscitate his story. So therefore, what it means is we have to quickly summarise it, and to do so, well, it was a very impressive start to the race with Jack Giles making his way all the way up through the field gradually. And in the opening third, he'd made his way towards the top 5. However, he pitted quite late, and as a result, he used the overcut strategy to try and launch himself to the front of the field, and he was inside the top 6 battle for the win, and he was able to quite quickly clear none other than James Fraser and Adam Lynch to take the lead, and he ran away with it, whereas everyone else, meanwhile, was absolutely squabbling over the remaining podium positions, and with also Steve Hughes picking up a stop and a hole penalty due to an unsafe pit entry when he was dominating at the front of the field, suddenly all the pieces came together, and for Jack Giles, it was a first win of the season. But we'll come on to the podium finishers and their performances in that round very shortly, because we need to move the story forward and we head into this round now. Round number 2. It is the 9th of April today, another Thursday abounds, and we're here at the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps circuit with the Grand Prix pit lane. So therefore, the Formula 1 pit lane, not the full World Endurance Championship layout, nor the classic pit lane. We're going to be having the latest version of the pit lane, and it is a 1 hour race. Now, we should apologise for the fact there was a bit of confusion with regards to this calendar that you saw on screen last time out in round number 1, where it did show that there were 2 30-minute races for the Master Split. Not quite so. The 2 30-minute races, one of the 2 sprint rounds, will be at Mugello in a week's time, and then we will see the other sprint race round, which was originally indicated to be at Circuit Zolder in round number 6. That will be for the Masters in round number 7 at Suzuka. So we do apologise for the confusion there, but if you are a Superstars fan, I'm sure you are, because you're tuning into the Superstars broadcast today, you don't have to worry about sprint races. All 10 rounds involve a single 1 hour race. And as you can see there with the weather forecast, we are expecting wet conditions today. However, it was dry in the screens you saw coming into this broadcast. So when exactly is the rain going to come? Well, we're expecting it sometime in the middle of the race, around the halfway mark, albeit there is going to be a bit of variance in that. We're expecting the racing go from dry to wet, and we'll tell you a little bit more about why that's going to make the race very interesting later on. But that is coming into this round, indeed what round number 2 is all about. But if we're telling you about the story coming into this round and also the weather to be expected, well, we need to tell you a little bit more about our host circuit. Here's, of course, the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps, located near the village of Francorchamps in the municipality of Stavelot in the Wallonian region of the Liège province of Belgium. I finally got that right. I can promise you, ladies and gents, I did not rehearse that about 5 or 6 times before this broadcast started. And the length of the circuit, 4.35 miles, or what is 7 kilometres, depending on your preference of units. But what doesn't change is the number of corners, 19 of them. And a big thank you to iRacing.com, not just their brilliant simulator, but the absolutely fantastic track map contained within it. And what we can see here, well, this is a circuit that needs arguably no introduction. And as our drivers roar the way down the start for this straight in towards the source, they'll very quickly find themselves coming out for a sharp hairpin, and into Sector 1 they'll truly go. And it's all going to be out the high-speed rise through Uruguay to Radion at turns 2, 3 and 4. As they exit out at one of the highest points of the circuit, they'll barrel their way down the Kemmel Straight, and it'll be the battle of the slipstream there as they head into the second sector that begins at Les Combes. Turns 5 and 6 are right into left medium-speed chicane that gives way then to Malmedy at turn number 7, where it's going to be fast through that right-hander and downhill they're going towards Rivage hairpin at turn number 8. Then it's all going to be about a low-speed corner that's heavily off camber, and therefore you need to be very patient with the throttle pedal. You cannot afford to get on the throttle too soon. Get it right and you'll quickly make your way over to the right, open up No Name Corner, now known as Jackie X Bend at turn number 9, and then storm your way down towards Pool Bend, the high-speed double left-hander at turns 10 and 11, which really is downhill and off camber all the way. Survive that, and you're heading towards the Foundry Chicane at turns 12 and 13, completely flat, and a medium-speed chicane at that. And then they'll come in towards the final corner of the middle sector, and that'll be Stavelot 1 at turn number 14. Coming out to the sharp right-hander right-angle corner, they'll make their way through Stavelot 2, also known as the Curve Pool Ferrier, and as they come through 15, it'll be flat out in the fastest conditions, as they roar the way all the way out towards Blanchimont, the high-speed left-hander that really is at the core of Sector 3, and their lifting is for nobody. And as they make their way through that left-hander, it'll then be down towards the bus stop chicane, a brutal test on the brakes, the lowest speed corners on the circuit, to complete lap and do it all over again. And indeed, the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps lap will be the best part of just over 2 minutes, but I'll tell you one thing, every lap is going to have a story to tell. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's make our way back to circuit side then, and bring you up to speed where the standings stand with regards to our top 3 drivers in each class, and how they're all getting on in qualifying. because as we can see, this circuit absolutely packed full of drivers currently, and well, we still do have the best part of 20 minutes as our qualifying. Indeed, we're back to it a little bit earlier today, but you can understand that given the fact we'll bring you up to the formal standings in what will be a week's time. We always publish our Drivers' Championship standings at least come the end of round number 2, so therefore we'll be showing them going into the round 3 broadcast, and also most likely we'll be showing you your team's championship standings across our Superstars and Masters splits, of course. They'll be merged together, as they always are for the Thursday GT3 Championship, and we hopefully showing you those as well on the broadcast in round number 3. But the man at the very front of the timetable right now is the man who is currently your championship leader in Pro after one round. And as we said earlier, for Milton Tomlinson-Dennis, it was a Grand Slam at the Hockenheimring. What does that mean in English? Well, Grand Slam means that you take pole position in qualifying, you lead every lap of the race, including when you come into the pits where you normally do lose the lead, but he decided to go the longest of everybody in the Pro class, and you win the race and you earn yourself the fastest lap. That is a Grand Slam because you have taken everything out of the day. Nobody's about to take anything off of you, and that's exactly what Tomlinson-Dennis was able to do last time out. The Samantha racing driver, keep in mind, of course, he was one of the big names in season 11. All the bad luck seemed to find him, but no bad luck found him in Germany, and I'll be hoping that continues today. However, meanwhile, in second of the category at the moment, well, it's none other than this man, currently 7th fastest in his own Lamborghini Huracan Evo Mark 1, and that is Nils Bauckhage. I do apologise for butchering his name last time out. We've been practicing pronouncing it. Hopefully we got it right this time. And the NJB Performance Privateer, well, currently 7th fastest, but he's quite tight towards the front of this qualifying field. And over such a long lap, to see him the best part of half a second off of Tomlinson-Dennis, well, you could equate that theoretically to around 3 tenths off at the Hockenheimring by comparison. So therefore, Bauckhage is not going to be too upset about where he is. Indeed, he had that brilliant start last time out with what was Corey Price lined up second place on the grid, and he was able to jump ahead of Price right at the start of the race, and therefore it really was second place for Bauckhage, as meanwhile in third place in the Pro class it was Justin Hembery, and Hembery in the end, well, in fact it was not Corey Price who lost out, it was Justin Hembery who lost out from second place on the grid, as I correct myself. Price was a little bit further back, but Hembery not having the happiest of days, having a bit of a slow start. Here is the Daniel Newman racing on a DNR red car, and as he comes on down through Rivage Bends, we did see briefly in the pictures Daniel Page taken off track at Stavlo 1 at the bottom of your camera moments ago, and well, hopefully he's all okay and able to get the car back on. Well, for Justin Hembery, whilst he was the second fastest in qualifying in Germany, he wasn't the second fastest on race pace, and he had to maintain a gap to Brandon Dyer over the remainder to make sure he didn't lose out his spot on the podium. Speaking of Brandon, is he here currently? And the answer to that question seems to be, I can't see him at the moment, ladies and gentlemen. He may not be on the entry list for today. We do currently have a grand total of 55 drivers in attendance. They've all set representative laps, but you never know when another lap's going to come in. And also, as in fact, I do notice that Brandon Dyer is currently second fastest. When I correct my eyesight, and the Altitude 3M eSports driver, he definitely looked very quick in the race conditions, but qualifying was his Achilles heel in Germany. He couldn't quite put a lap together that he was too pleased with. But if that's the story of Pro coming into this round, what about in the interclass? Well, Jared Love, your championship leader after one round for the DDK Racing team with RaceStatBot. And I can tell you one thing, the team are very pleased with it, including none other than Davey Daniels, the team principal, who was watching from the sidelines. And as the Ford Mustang driver makes his way onwards, where he was telling us in his post-round interview the fact that he absolutely loves the Hockenheimring. He showed it so much love, and in the end, the circuit gave him all the love back. But he's expecting it to be tougher here today, because the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps is not necessarily a circuit he does not enjoy. He does like racing this circuit, but he knows that this is a circuit that a lot of drivers really enjoy. This is one of the most popular circuits on any simulator, and indeed one of the most popular circuits to go on a track day at in real life, if not go racing at in real life. And therefore it does mean if everybody knows the circuit well, you've got to know it better than everybody else. It's not as easy, whereas the Hockenheimring, a far more technical circuit, you could say, in some respects, and also not as popular a circuit after the 2002 Hermann Tilke redesign. So therefore, it's not a circuit that everyone religiously tries compared to others like Jared Love, and as he does make his way onto the Kemmel Straight, picking up the mother of all slipstream now for Daniel Newman racing car, and then in the two of them swapping the place on around, but that works out. I think that was Justin Hembery who stepped aside in and now gone to toe to the pit lane. But Love will be grateful for that slipstream from a fellow V8 machine. And as we mentioned earlier, the fact was that he controlled the first stint of the race after Luke Van Goertel unfortunately got caught up in the open lap incident, collected several of the DCW racing crew as well. But in the second stint, it was Kyle Roy who tried to chase him down quite highly. And here is the aforementioned Kyle Roy in the Axis SimSport Corvette as he makes his way up the hill. Well, the fault will be for this man, the Axis SimSport with SimWorks team. And well, the team have set me a challenge over the course of this season. I've got to try and be able to remember, without cheating, not allowed to look at a script or any notes, I've got to try and remember each of the Axis SimSport teams that are on this grid and the drivers that are in them. Well, it's going to be a bit difficult, ladies and gents, but I'll see what I can do over the course of the season. No promises. But they do have SimWorks on the rear wing of that car, so that does help out a little bit. But Distraction aside, the key theme of his race was that in qualifying, it was not the best of qualifying sessions for Kyle Roy because he qualified 4th. Now, on paper, you'd think, given how stacked the interclass is, great performance. And yes, it was. But when he was able to put together an absolutely stonking amount of pace in the second stint of the race where he really came alive, well, we do know that Kyle Roy is a little bit of a tyre whisperer and also a fuel whisperer in his cars. However, he really just needed an extra couple of attempts in qualifying or in the first stint, and he would have really had a big opportunity to take the win. Catching up to Love in the final 5 laps, gave him 5 laps, of course, to be able to go battling, but the problem was Love was ready to defend him, and indeed, Love not an easy driver to pass. So Roy today's got to find a little bit more starting in qualifying, but it does look as though, if anything, other drivers have found a bit more. And meanwhile, well, where is Nicholas Carlson? He's just ahead at the moment, and here's the Beowulf Racing Team driver. And what a topsy-turvy day he had. The major incident on lap number 3 at the start of the race, and did see him have to come into the pits for major repair work, but despite that, he didn't give up and charged his way back through to 4th place, and he was gifted 3rd place in some respects by the late demise of Ross Young. And here is Ross Young by comparison. So therefore, Nicholas Carlson, the man who started 3rd last time out and did finish 3rd, well, he'll be hoping to be able to repeat that as Ross Young in his Ferrari 296 GT3. Well, the Dexterous Motorsports driver at the moment currently looking to be 9th fastest in the inter-qualifying, and he'll be wondering where exactly he can potentially find the pace today. May not be too easy for the 228 driver. We know this Ferrari is a more strategic car at Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps rather than a pace car. But of course, there'll be the big factor of weather, and more on that very shortly. But Young will be looking to try and make his way onto the podium here today. Meanwhile, in the club class then, so let's talk a little bit about how things are going for the podium finishers of the club class last time out. Well, Jack Giles currently not in the car, not in the pit lane, but he was your winner in the end, having started in 12th place, a completely unexpected result. And well, if he can improve his qualifying points, he's currently 9th fastest, albeit not in the car and not in the pit lane, so therefore we can't give you a camera shot of his car. Well, you can imagine he'd be trying to make it at least 2 podiums in 2 races, not 2 out of 2 in terms of wins. But meanwhile, Adam Lynch, he's currently the fastest of everybody in the club class at the moment. He's Porsche 992, and he is fastest ahead of Jordan Butler by 1.5 tenths. Speaking of Butler, here is the Full Tilt Virtual Motorsport driver, and whereas Lynch, well, he looks set for 2nd place until Hughes' stop and hold penalty, and he spoiled his own chances of winning, did Adam Lynch, with what was a spin early on in the 2nd stint, so he had to fight his way back into contention. For Jordan Butler, it was a 5th place start, a 3rd place finish, and along the way he was surprised by how well he qualified, given how close the class was. But what was also perhaps surprising was the fact that he chose to undercut so early at Germany. He undercut in lap number 14, and therefore, by doing so, it was one of those situations whereby essentially he had to charge his way back up through the order, and he found a lot of traffic along the way, so he actually lost a lot of time, and he was at the back of a whole pack of Porsche 992s. He was the only Mercedes in that pack for some time. He's the only variety, in fact, in that pack, and he managed to start to tick them off one by one, albeit there was a bit of contact between himself and Rob Gregg on the final lap, which they both put down as a racing incident. They had a good chat about it, and he talked to us about it after the racing last time out. But indeed, that really ended up sealing the deal for 3rd place in his race, rather than an opportunity to chase down 2nd place. So those are the big themes of the club class last time out. What was 7-way battle for victory in the end, in a qualifying session that was absolutely dominated by Steve Hughes, but it all went wrong because of a pit entry penalty, and then suddenly after that it was pandemonium in the club class from start to finish. Right now, who's looking the quickest of everybody in the other classes? Well, we said Milton Tomlinson-Dennis is looking very quick in the pro class, and overall there he is making his way out the pit lane, getting a go again. The clouds come over the circuit. We're expected to be very cloudy from now all the way to at least 20 minutes into the race, and then at some point after that the rain will arrive. But meanwhile, in the interclass, there is your Jägermeister machine for MJK Sim Racing, tucking in behind. Well, in fact, that's not the Jägermeister machine, that's Arno Prague behind him. So they are both MJK Sim Racing machines, but different liveries, as we do see Luke van Goertel pulling offline. He's going to try and give a bit of a tow there to his teammate of Arno Prague, who right now is struggling a little bit in qualifying by comparison. Therefore, that might just help them move a bit further up the order. The Dutch contingent wanting to try and improve, as they always do. But Van Goertel right now the fastest of everybody in Inter by the best part of what is half a tenth over Jared Love. And we do know that those two really were inseparable in qualifying in Germany. And it seems to be the same today, albeit the other way around in terms of how they're planning to line up, at least for now. Meanwhile, just behind, we do have Mark Kolokop. And while DCW Racing, I had the opportunity to take a peek in their paddock after the race, and they were quite frustrated with the way that round number 1 went. Understandably, we did see the majority of the DCW cars all collected as a result of the huge incident that happened on turn 4 on lap 1. Albeit, at the end of the day, it was one of those instances where a car did lose the rear end, and subsequently it was a domino effect incident. And, well, understandably, when you do have 51 cars at a circuit, where normally you'll see grids in the region of 40 cars maximum, making the way all the way out of turn 2 into 4. Somebody on cold tyres gets it wrong towards the front of the field, everyone's then got to react, and naturally you run out of reaction room when you're 2-3 wide already. However, we know DCW Racing are a very strong team, a very capable team, and they're not going to give up. And Kolokop right now definitely showing that. He's looking very strong here today in qualifying compared to how he was last time out in Germany. He was chasing top 5s, but here today he is chasing the podium, at least in qualifying, albeit Villa-Cotone and the Beowulf Racing at Mercedes currently only 300ths behind him, and then he only in turn has the best part of 500ths to Brad Pickett. Pickett right now looking very quick in his Ferrari, so there is some life in the Ferrari, even if it's not looking to be the strongest car on the whole in terms of 1 lap pace. Well, Pickett is trying to circumvent that and show it can be quick over a single lap. As for the club cars currently, Adam Lynch is the provisional pole sitter. Here he is coming out to the pit lane now, and as he does so, the runner-up from last time, hoping he can go a little bit quicker today, as we do see the car with the Logan on the back, or the slogan we should say, of Eat, Sleep, Sim, Race, Repeat. And as he makes his way onwards, I wonder if that's going to be a B-side version of the movie Live, Die, Repeat, aka Edge of Tomorrow with Tom Cruise and Emily Blunt, and I'd pay to see that if it was a sim racing movie, ladies and gentlemen. But as he makes his way onwards, well, right now Lynch looking to be the quickest over Jordan Butler by a margin, if I'm not mistaken, of the best part of 1700ths, almost 2 tenths. Jordan Butler still second fastest at the moment is Mercedes, and Christopher Petty, meanwhile, parked up in the pit lane in his Porsche. Well, he's not too far adrift at all, just a tenth further behind, looking quite impressive, and his qualifying points last time out was inside the top 10, but he's hoping for a bit more here today, as we look to Philip Harris making his way on around. Now, I have been a little bit rude and not saying hello to a few of you there in the YouTube chat, including none other than what is Federico, who says Team Beowulf Hype Train leaving the station in 1 minute. And well, that's absolutely brilliant to see. We also say hello there to FTMG52, who says bets on how many out on lap 1. And that being in reference, of course, to how tight it's going to be going up for Uruj and Radion onto the Kemmel Straight. And well, hopefully we get to see the entire field make it safely on through, but never say never. We also do say hello to Photorus90, or Photos Katios, of course, Mr. Overtake, who races on the Sunday GT3 Championship, the UK Sim Racing one here at SimRacing International, and previously raced in the Thursday series. And I hope you're doing well, Photos. Always good to see you there. We also say hello to Jordan Heppel there, 3144, who's saying hello to Photos there, and good to see you both here. We also do say hello to the Milky Bar Kid. And well, I'll tell you one thing, ladies and gentlemen, it being Easter recently, the fact that I've just read that name out is actually making me really hungry. I don't want you to change your username, Milky Bar Kid, but just know that is my favourite chocolate bar of all time, and right now I am getting hungry as a result of that. But still, I'm going to focus on having my cup of water next to me. Well, I'm probably going to need to top it up at some point, although I'm not going to get a chance to now. I'm locked in the commentary booth, but it's good to see you here. We also say hello to Soviet Geek, who says, is there a Hurricane Evo 2 in iRacing, or is the old Lambo an intentional choice? Unfortunately, we don't have the Evo 2 in iRacing. Hopefully we may see it before the car does get retired, given the fact that Lamborghini are bringing a new GT3 Challenger most likely next year. I think it's the Tamburello, although don't quote me on that name, to be fair. I have not been studying it as close as I should, but indeed we do have an Evo 2 out there. The main way you can tell the difference between the Evo 1 and the Evo 2, it's a very silly thing, but it's the easiest way to tell, as we try to find a Lamborghini out there at the moment, and we do have one. It's Milton Tomlinson-Dennis's one. Is you look at the roof of the car, the Evo 1 does not have a clearly visible roof scoop to it, meanwhile the Evo 2 does. That's the main change aerodynamically to the car to help with cooling of the engine in the rear, or mid-engine rear-wheel drive, the Audi 5.2 V10 engine. The other main difference is the fact that the ABS system actually controls the engine braking as well on the Evo 2 model compared to the Evo 1, but otherwise it's primarily the same platform, just some slight aerodynamic refinements and also changes to the electronics package inside the car. We also do say hello to Denny Ploger, who wishes a good one in the content booth. And thank you, Denny. The same to yourself and to all drivers competing today, of course. And well, David Daniels there with his eyes wide open. It's good to see him tuning in. And we also say hello to Tristan Dinabrega, of course, our wonderful competitor and previous champion of the Thursday GT3 series. Taking a bit of a break. And good evening to you, Tristan. I hope you're doing well. So it's massive field. This was a good car spread, and indeed a lot of car variety here. Although, do we have an Audi? Yes, we do. We do have Martin Brandon's Audi, currently parked up in the pit lane. We've got an Audi R8 Evo 2 out there as well, which is wonderful to see. we don't have the Acuras here. Well, indeed, the Acura not a very popular car at the moment, it would seem, in GT3, given its recent changes, and the fact now it is one of those cars that you really have to drive on the limit. But we're on the limit of this qualifying session coming towards the close, and one thing we haven't given you yet is an onboard lap in this qualifying session. So we're going to fix that quite quickly, and to do so today, we are going to be coming to Brandon Dyer as he takes us around for a V8 fueled lap in his Coyote 5-litre engine Ford Mustang. Making his way down the timeline and towards turn number 1 and looking over to the left-hand side. He'll brake at the 100 metre board and coming all the way down to first gear. Trail braking all the way in and now off and on the throttle. Power oversteer there as he tries to get the hammer down. A little bit aggressive there, but first gear is always going to do that at the 5-litre V8. And now make his way up towards the original radio. And just listen in here, ladies and gentlemen. Does he go flat out through the fast sequence? Now has to lift through there, just a small lift initially as he started to turn uphill into Rouge, and understandable given the fact this car quite heavy and therefore focus more for speed rather than corner capacity, but now make his way down the Kemmel Straight and in towards what will be the second sector. Getting ready for Lake On, braking at the start of the entry curve on the left hand side, coming all the way down to third gear. Right into left he goes here, just managing the throttle, doesn't let the car creep too far to the right, he's got to keep over to left to open up turn 7. Does that, takes a bit of curb on the inside and a bit on the outside to settle it down, and into a Rivage bend, looks to his left hand side and brakes there just before the start of the entry curve on the left, comes all the way down to second gear. Now hold it, wait for it, still wait, and now feed the throttle and get the car to the right hand side and in towards expend at turn number 9. Through the left hand he goes, lets the car run out nice and wide there to the runoff area, and now down towards Pillon Bend. And as he does so, looks to his right hand side, and he will be braking about 50 metres from the turning point, and now chucks the car into the left hander, full commitment as he makes his way down the hill, and in nails those apexes perfectly as he heads in towards the Flanders chicane. Motor left, he'll bring the car, looking to brake just underneath the gantry, and well, it coincides with the start of the entry curve on the left hand side, down to third gear. Now straighten the two apexes together, right into left he'll go, and now he's got to be a bit patient on the throttle here, run too wide, he'll spin the car out to the barrier, but he gets it right, in towards Stavlo 1, onto the brakes, 75 minutes from corner apex, down to third gear, staying in the higher gear there, 2-stop wheel spin, and now turning through, Stavlo 2, a little bit of a lift on entry, but otherwise full throttle beyond the apex, and all the way out towards Blanchimont Bend. Now heading all the way up there and getting ready for the fast left-hander at turn number 17. And here, will he lift or will he go flat out for it? Let's listen in and see. Full commitment there from Dyer, as would be expected. What are we going flat out through their qualifying mode, and now braking 150 metres from the start of the turning point in towards the bus stop chicane. Right into left he goes nice and deep there, 19 to open up the corner, fights with power over still on the exit, even in second gear. The car really having to be chucked around. That is a lap of the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps, brought to you by a third place driver at the moment in the pro class of Brandon Dyer, and he does not improve. That was a 2-minute 19.266, and well, still trying to find a bit more time out. Then I think the big error that he did have early on in that really scuppered the time, but still more work to be done there, and well, thank you to him for an onboard lap. And as he heads on through here, we're looking at the times at the moment, it is razor tight, and Tomlinson-Dennis right now is the anomaly at the top, 2 tenths clear of Justin Hembery, but then suddenly from Hembery all the way down to Kershaw in 40th place. Stephen Kershaw, who you see here, it is 1.8 seconds. That is incredible. So that is a grand total of 39 cars separated by 1.8 seconds. You do the mathematics there. That is not even a tenth. It's not even half a tenth between each car if you average it out. That is how tight it is. In fact, we've got 3 drivers here trying to do their recreation of Formula 1's visit to Jerez in 1996, if I remember correctly, whereby we've got 3 drivers the exact same lap time, and that is Pickett and also Setters and Page. And well, in the end, it will be Pickett. It will be taken at that 20th place if they stay as they are, given the fact he was the one to set the lap time first. But Bradley Pickett there right now, definitely looking to be the quickest of the trio of Setters and Page just behind. Now, of course, we do have a penalty for this round, and that is for Bradley Setters, who's currently in the pit lane, parked up the Ford Mustang for Relentless Racing. He has a drive-through penalty that must be served. It has to be taken on what is lap 2 or by the end of the race. So it cannot be taken on the final lap. It must be served before the final lap. He has to do that on top of any penalties he may pick up over the race distance, should he be cheeky with the instant points. So that's the only penalty we have here today. No qualifying bans. That is due to licence points picked up from our season opener. But 2.5 minutes left to go. Is anybody going to spring some late surprises? Well, perhaps not a welcome surprise at the moment. Is a Benjamin Massey still trying to find some time out there for Inox Motorsport. He's currently 29th fastest on the 2 minutes 16. 0.488, and well, 21st in pro, and with it 29th overall. He is the lowest placed pro driver here, And, well, it's not a good story to be on at the moment, albeit he's getting faster and faster. He's a bit of a GTE specialist, to be fair, so therefore it's no surprise. Whilst he is in a similar car, these cars not quite like GTEs, given the fact they have ABS, GTEs do not, and also have a little bit less aero overall. Indeed, the aero package on these cars is a bit different, also a bit less engine power. They're running about 40 to 60 brake horsepower less compared to a GTE, but again, it's quite marginal. It's very varied from car to car, given the balance of performance of the era. But he makes his way on through. Massey right now on his penultimate lap here, just going to squeeze in another one just about. Things are not looking too good for him. Are there any other surprises out there, perhaps some more positive surprises for example? And the answer to that question is going to be, well, Arno Prags at the moment. We're trying to work with his MJK SimRacing teammate there, Luke van Goertel, who's just in front of him. He's currently 5th fastest in club, so he's actually looking quite good. Jack Giles, meanwhile, the winner from last time out in club class, 10th. Well, I can tell you one thing. He did do the heroics from 12th to victory last time out in club. If he's intentionally trying to do this again, I'm sure he's not, to be fair. Jack, you're going to give me a heart attack here if you keep trying to do this. If you keep pulling this off, I can tell you everything right now. You intentionally balance the performance in yourself by doing this, but I'm sure he's pushing as hard as everybody else. But perhaps he's just a race driver. Perhaps he's not a qualifying base driver, and that's why he's down in 48 for the moment. But again, given how tight this field is as well, it doesn't surprise me we're seeing some big names shuffle down, because how close they are. A 10th could literally gift you 5 or 6 places in some instances. Indeed, if you were Elliot Court right now, who currently is parked up in 23rd, if you were to find the best part of a 10th, that would leap you all the way up to none other than what would be a 19th place ahead of Ashley Coupland, to give you an example. It'd give you practically 5 places in a blast. But as we do see, Gilles GPH saying Tom ain't racing today, and well, maybe not, it would seem. Indeed, very crowded order here, but we always have a couple of drivers who may not make it. We are missing 5 of them. Well, Rob Gregg as well, he's not having the best of qualifying performances for Moonshiners Racing Club, currently down in 52nd place. But with his qualifying session almost done and dusted, he's on his final flying lap. Speaking of a driver who is on a final lap, Ross Young here in the Ferrari, can he find a bit more improvement? He is currently 30th fastest overall, 9th in the interclass. Can he get himself back up the order? He's been demoted down after being towards the back end of the top 5 for so long. The clock strikes 0, so checker flag is out in qualifying. It means if they're on the lap, they're allowed to finish it, but they can't start a new one. And as Young comes into the last couple of quarters, well, he has got personal best in the middle sector. This final sector is shaping up quite nicely. What's it going to be for the Dexterous Motorsports driver as he heads towards the line? And the answer to that question is going to be, it's a personal best of the final sector, and it moves him. It does not move him anywhere, because he does not improve in the first sector. In fact, his first sector was dire by comparison, so he stays where he is. He won't be too pleased about that whatsoever, given how much work he put in the rest of the lap. Meanwhile, Jack Giles is just heading towards the finish line now of his qualifying session as he comes onwards. And what's it going to be here for Giles as he heads towards the timing line? Well, we'll have to wait and see as he trips his way on around, but this may be where it's going to be a bit further back for him today. Perhaps he will not be able to move forward as much as he would like. And the answer is, as we can confirm, that Thomas Weston does not seem to be here. For those who are Thomas Weston fans, unfortunately, I can't see him on the entry list. We'll hop over the curve there for Giles. You don't want to take too much of the sausage curve. That will ground up the suspension. Heads towards the line then. His first and middle sector, nothing to shout home about. His final sector, he's found a little bit of time there, but he does not improve. So Giles stays where he is, and he will be starting none other than what will be 48th. As meanwhile, that was a trip off the road for Adam Smith, and that is qualifying practically complete, ladies and gents. Although Corey Price, I think he's heading towards the end of his final lap in the Darkwing Racing Machine, and the Aston Martin V8 Vantage Evo looking quite quick. 2:15.592 currently, and where is he going to improve on this one? I think he's going to need a lot of time if he's able to improve. And the answer to that's going to be, well, he's going to commit to it here. Perhaps he thinks so. He's got a golden final sector to offset a poor first sector and a second sector which hasn't improved. And for Bryce, it's not an improvement. And so he'll be staying in 5th place. But that is qualifying complete, ladies and gentlemen. And as we do look to the scenic view, and those clouds are definitely thickening. Well, Milton Tomlinson-Dennis doing exactly what he did in Germany. By 2 attempts, he takes pole position at 2 minute 15.244. Justin Hembery will join him on the front row. Again, it is deja vu. But Brandon Dyer and Raz Harper, it's a Ford Mustang 3-4 in that second row. And Corey Price and Leon Seeley will be on row number 3. You've got to go back to 13th place to find Luke van Goertel, who will be your Interpol sitter, his first of the season. Congratulations to him. Getting the upper hand on Jared Love by what was a grand total of 600, in fact 500s here today. And well, Jared Love will start second in the interclass, and then you'll see Mark Cullicott and Villa Cotonon on row 9 together, 3rd and 4th in the class there, not too far behind, and Brad Pickett wasn't far adrift. Adam Lynch, meanwhile, will be 34th overall. He will be your club pole sitter, and he was able to find a bit of time over Jordan Butler to the tune of what was 1.5 tenths in the end, with Butler, Petty and Harris being separated by only a grand total of a tenth in totality. So very close there for 2nd through to 4th in the club class. class, and that'll be for 37th through to 39th. But what a close qualifying session, one of our closest that we have seen in recent history. When you have a top 40 separated by less than 2 seconds, well, I can tell you one thing, for David Biggerdike, starting 40th place for DCW Racing, that's got to feel the most frustrating 2-second window of his racing career, but it has to be expected given the fact that simple reason is Spa-Francorchamps such a popular circuit, everybody knows it like the back of their hands, and therefore everyone is going to enjoy it and put together some absolutely staggering laps. But as qualifying does end, and we get ready to transition into the 5-minute warm-up stroke break period, well, why is strategy going to be so important? Because qualifying has been one part of the story, and starting on pole is going to be beneficial because you will have a clear track in front of you, and therefore you may be a bit safer. Well, the thing is, we are expecting wet weather to arrive at some point in the middle of the race, and as we said earlier, it is likely to come around the halfway point. Now, that makes it very dicey, because theoretically, as we do head into this practice warm-up session, when you have wet weather arriving midway through the race and there's only one pit stop expected, or the ideal strategy is a one-stop, well, understandably, you don't want to make more than one pit stop. So therefore, if the rain comes late into the race, or whilst it is theorised it's going to come midway through, there's always a bit of variation with the iRacing weather model. Should it come very late, well, it's going to be a race where a lot of drivers may need to save fuel to guarantee they will get to the pit stop, which then enables them to transition onto what will be the wet tyre. Indeed, everyone's been on slick so far. There's no reason to be on a wet tyre at the moment. But when the rain arrives, well, then it'll be about who does go for the gamble onto the wet tyre or not. So that's going to be the thought process there, as we do see Andy Jones making his way out of the pit lane and on a little bit of a practice lap. A quite quick drive of the Welshman, and indeed in a Lamborghini, we didn't get to see too much of last time out. We're going to get to see plenty more of it here today as he makes his way onwards. That's why, whilst qualifying was going to be a big factor here, we think that timing the strategy right could be critical. And you may see some drivers opt to lose places early in the race and essentially opt to fuel save quite a bit in order to extend their opening stint as much as possible to give themselves the flexibility. Because lo and behold, if you came into the pits to essentially go onto another set of slick tyres or to stay on your slick tyres because you ran out of fuel and a lap later you need to be on the wets, 2 trips to the pit lane here at Spa-Francorchamps, even if we are running the shorter Grand Prix pit lane compared to the endurance pit lane, whereby the end-to-end pit travel time on the limiter is 60 seconds, excluding your pit stop, well, here in the Grand Prix pits, you're going to see an end-to-end travel time of around 20 to 25 seconds, and the pit stop as well is going to be the best part if you have to change all 4 tyres, but the fuel in is going to be the best part of 30 seconds as well. So therefore, you do not want to make a second trip to the pits if you can help it. You want to do it all in one go. So this could be a very strategic race, and indeed pace may not be optimal to just try and break away. As Bradley Setters there, cold brakes and cold tyres, shows you what happens at Les Combes as you go a bit deep. Benjamin Massey there finding himself digging up a little bit of the sand. Meanwhile, we look to Massey's teammate Mikhail Abasek, the Inox Motorsport driver, as he makes his way on down his own Mercedes. Choice of car for the team this season. Mercedes, a very popular car in GT3 racing, albeit we do believe that we do have a brand new Mercedes Challenger coming to real world racing as of 2027. It's starting to be unveiled by Mercedes little by little. And well, of course, these GT3 cars have to be homologated based on road cars, which the AMG 2020 Evo car you see here on the simulator and in real life, still Mercedes' premier product for racing in GT3. That is mirrored to the AMG GT car, which is a road car, which is going to set you back quite a few pretty pennies. Indeed, you can't pick one up as your daily, or if you do, you've got very rich pockets, and I'm envious of you. But indeed, as Abasek makes his way onwards right now, he'll be very pleased to just get his head down and focus on enjoying the car he's got. But not too long before we go green flag racing, ladies and gentlemen, as we look to Sam Hockley, the privateer here in the 254, had a decent qualifying session, a very tight interfield once again, and he has been one of those drivers who's been very impressive over the races. He hasn't normally had qualifying pace, and again, not all drivers do. It's very hard to get it right over a single lap. It's a long circuit like this. It's much easier perhaps to be more consistent over multiple laps. And that's what this warm-up here is also there to do. It's to give drivers the opportunity to change their setup from qualifying to race if they have 2 different setups, or at least to put the right fuel in the car, and also just to give them that little bit of comfort break if they do need to go to the bathroom. And if you do need to, ladies and gentlemen, or if you need to get a top of a liquid refreshment, go do it now, because very shortly, in about 1.5 minutes time, we will be making our way to the grid. We will have a partial formation lap, and after that, we'll be going green flag racing, and there'll be no time to pause, because I'm certain, I think we could all agree, the 60 minutes of racing action which awaits us is going to be absolutely epic from start to finish. But everyone absolutely itching and ready to go, no doubt about that. And well, we're absolutely itching to see how they all get on, but this is definitely going to be an interesting one with that risk of rain around the corner at some point in the race. It's guaranteed to come, we promise you that. We do have a timeline at weather. We don't use forecasted weather for these races, we do use timeline, so that way we guarantee there is going to be mixed conditions. However, there's always a bit of variability, and when exactly that timeline comes into effect, it's not set in stone. As we look to Schubert Cardozo for the Inter-Racing team, had a bit of a damaged race number 1, being caught up in the early instance, but here today, we're looking to go once again in the 307, and we do see the Audi there of Martin Brandon just behind, and the Access Sim Sports with SimWorks car. Well, we're happy to see the Audi being kept alive, even if it's not that popular anymore, whether it be in the real world or, of course, on the simulator. Well, Brandon definitely keeping the screaming V10 going just that little bit longer. It is sad that we are running out of V10s in the world. Of course, there have been some absolute screamers in the past, including the Dodge Viper V10, the 8-litre V10 in GT1 racing, if any of you are old enough to remember that going racing. And whilst Martin Brandon makes his way onwards, well, he keeps the Audi V10 alive just for a little bit longer. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to make our way to the grid and see how they all line up for round number 2 of the Thursday GT3 Championship Season 12, brought to you on iRacing by SimRacing International. And of course, you're tuning in to the Superstar Split here from the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps. And so as all the drivers make the way onto the grid, this is how they'll line up for a one and only race. Taking pole position, much like at the Hockenheimring, it's Tomlinson-Dennis, Milton in fact, for SimRacing Racing. Joining on the front row will be Justin Hembery for Daniel Newman, Racing Red. Then on row number 2, it is going to be Brandon Dyer for Altitude Frame Esports and Raz Harper for DDK with RaceStatBot.com. Starting 5th, Corey Price there for Darkwing Racing ahead of Leon Seeley, the other Samantha Racing car, not quite able to make it towards the front row today, so therefore a bit of work to do there for the 3-2-1 driver. Schubert Cardozo takes a season best qualifying points so far for Inter-Racing team of 7th, just ahead of Charlie Walker for Relentless Racing. And then we will see Nils Bauckhage starting in 9th place, ahead of Joris Petersveen, who completes your top 10. Behind the privateer, starting in 11th place, it's going to be Richard Sinnell for DCW Racing Blue, ahead of his teammate of Andy Jones. They lock out row 6, ahead of your Interpol sitter, Luke Van Gertel for MJK Sim Racing. There'll be Leighton Austin starting 14th, just ahead of Jared Love, with a second place into drive there, starting just ahead of Ben Woodgate, who is 16th. Behind him, it'll be Mark Collicott, ahead of Villa Catonen, all into row for row number 9, and there'll be Ashley Coupland and Brad Pickett who complete your top 20. Outside the top 20, 21st, it's going to be Bradley Setters ahead of Daniel Page, albeit the Daniel Newman Racing red car starting on the pit lane, it would seem. Elliot Court starts 23rd ahead of Benjamin Massey, with Nicholas Carlson starting 25th. Then we'll see the intro followed up by the pro of Justin Noel, and then it'll be Chris Cole 27th ahead of none other than will be Alfred Kirsten, the Danish driver there, 28th. Behind him, Kyle Roy and Ross Young complete your top 30, and outside the top 30, 31st, it's going to be Sam Hockley. Then we have Adam Smith, no, in fact, yes, it is Adam Smith, starting 32nd ahead of Adrian Howard, with Adam Lynch taking the club pole position in the privateer outfit, just ahead of Stephen Kershaw. Oh, how a week has changed the fortunes for the 294 driver. Then it's going to be Bobby Moss starting 36th ahead of Jordan Butler, who's second of the club drivers for Full Tilt Virtual Motorsport, ahead of none other than Christopher Petty, who is going to be third of the club drivers, 38th. Complete in the top 40, it's Philip Harris and Mikhail Abasek. Well, in fact, it's not. It's Philip Harris and David Bigadite there, as we make our way then to Mikhail Abasek, who starts 41st ahead of Arno Bruggt. And then it's going to be Martin Kenyon just ahead of Ashley Shucksmith on your 22nd row. Denny Ploger begins the day 45th ahead of Martin Brandon. And it is going to be James Fraser 47th ahead of Jack Giles. And then we will have none other than Sean Clark starting 49th ahead of the machinery of Nathan Healy. And outside the top 50 to complete your final 3 rows, it's Ollie Smith ahead of Rob Gregg, Eddie Fearbold ahead of Dwayne Hoffman, and Max Dean brings up the rear in 55th place. But ladies and gentlemen, it's had to be a quick whistle stop tour through the grid, because as the field makes its way down towards the bus stop chicane, we are only moments away from going green flag racing here for round number 2 of the championship, and it's over to Milton Tomlinson-Dennis to take us to the green for 60 minutes of racing action here in the Ardennes Forest of Belgium. and it's lights down. Away we go for our second round of the championship as Tomlinson-Dennis gets the field away, but as he does so, we're making the way down toward the braking zone for turn number 1, and Tomlinson-Dennis defending hard, but look at Brandon Dye immediately up the inside as they all come through. 3 wide, they're a bit further back, a bit of a tussle there. Corey Price being bounced around with Raz Harper. Harper loses out as a result of a little bit of power oversteer at exit, but now they make the way into the treacherous Rouge and Radion the first time around here, and it's going to be cold tides as they make the way up the hill. This could be dramatic as the whole field roars its way up, and as they do, everyone's taken through 2 wides there, and meanwhile everyone seems to calm it on down just about, as we do see Adam Lynch has had a comfortable start to the race in the club class. There's been an incident a bit further back, it would seem. We've had a few drives separated backwards, as it does seem as though a few drives actually getting caught out of the bus stop chicane on the race start, perhaps to be expected. But meanwhile, back to the front of the field, Tomlinson-Dennis side by side with Justin Hembery, runs Hembery wide, it would seem, and now Brandon Dye is trying to get involved as Leon Seeley looks up behind as well. Tomlinson-Dennis had to go very defensive here, as that's going to be Schubert Cardozo finding the gravel and now making the way down in towards a large bend, while top 5 will still fight each other hard. Richard Simnor further back, battling side by side with Leighton Austin, looking up the inside. The DCWA Racing blue team had a much happier start to this race compared to round number 1. They survive it. Andy Jones in 10th place, just ahead of Simnor right now, so Simnor playing a bit of rear guard action here, but they do have Luke van Gertel at the interclass leader between the two of them. Well, it's been a great start for so many drives here, although we have had a couple of drives get it wrong at the start. We will get some replays of that, and meanwhile further back in the club class, it's absolute warfare going on here, because that is Philip Harris ahead of Christopher Petty and John Butler. Butler's looking at the inside of Petty in towards Pearl, and Betty's going to go in on the brakes. Will he be able to get it done? Not quite there. Arno Prague now queues up behind, and I think the FTVM driver just simply trying to brave it. Oh, who's that into the barrier? It's a portion towards Philip Harris. Harris loses it coming out of the corner for Euro Titans Endurance, and suddenly heading in towards the Vandy chicane, he relegates himself all the way down the order. I don't believe it. Harris was looking so confident there in the podium place in the club class early on. It's all gone backwards rather than forwards for him. We have had 4 drivers had to go to the pit lane. That's Charlie Walker, Martin Kenyon, Mikhail Abasek and Daniel Page. So therefore they've had some difficulties, but meanwhile no difficulties for those at the front of the field. As we can see, Milton Tomlinson-Dennis now starting to bolster away. He is going quicker and quicker now in the middle sector. He seems to have got his head down here. That Lamborghini needing some time to warm up. Meanwhile, here comes Leon Seeley trying to push his way on past there. The Samantha Dam race to try and go outside to inside. It's brave, it's bold, and it's absolutely brilliant as he overtakes Justin Hembery. And Hembery in the end decides not to fight it, realising it's lap 1 of many, and therefore there's no point. But after 1 lap, it's Milton Tomlinson-Dennis who leads for STR, just ahead of Brandon Dyer, followed by Leon Seeley. But Seeley's still under pressure from Hembery. Hembery trying to go round the outside of Daniel Newman Racing Red. Can he get it done? The answer is no, as they make the way on towards Rouge and Radion. Corey Price is 5th, head of Raz Harper, followed by Joris Peters-Veen. Then we do have Nils Bauckhage in 8th, head of Schubert Cardozo and Andy Jones. It's an all-pro top 10. 11th is your interclass leader of Luke van Gertel, controlling the lead still after starting on pole. Richard Simnor, Leighton Austin, Ben Woodgate separating from Villa Katonen, and right now the barrel for racing team driver. Well, he's looking very quick at the moment. He's moved from 4th to 2nd in class, and Jared Love is behind him. Love's had a bit of a slow start to this race, but to be fair, hasn't lost too much size. We've got several cars with slowdown penalties there for cutting track limits at Radion, and therefore now they're going to have to essentially serve slowdowns that are going to relegate them down the field, including Richard Simnor, who drops behind Jared Love, albeit for a brief moment, before getting back ahead of him. Love in the end gives him the space to cooperate, and the 2 American beasts in the end swap the places back around immediately. So Simnor back in the 15th place there. Won't be too upset about that, and the fact he's still got visibility of the pro drivers in front. But look at that move of Benjamin Massey trying to squeeze up the inside of Love. And Love at the moment's probably saying to himself, okay, calm it down, gentlemen. I know I'm an into driver, but you don't need to pick on me. And right now Massey just wants to get him through. And Benjamin Massey's had a brilliant start to his race. Started 24th, has moved to 17th. He's gained 7 places. He's one of the biggest gainers of them all. But David Biggerdug as well. He started 40th as the DCW Racing yellow driver. And right now he's like, oh, goodness me, hold the phone on that, because that's Stephen Kershaw getting ejected out at X-Bend. I think it's, oh my goodness. And that's going to be a big stop on the brakes there for none other than, what was the car of it? Well, Chris Cole. And Cole in the end, well, I think he went wide there by default. I think he understood why. He's got damage in the car, in fact. And in the end, suddenly realised there was going to be a car waiting for him there. That was completely unexpected. And Cole's picked up damage. I don't think that contact there he had with the parked up car was the cause of the damage. I think there's been a lot more, and that's just an after effect. But we'll get a replay of that when we can. Meanwhile, back to Massey, Brad Pickett and Jared Love we go. And Brad Pickett's actually going to get ahead of Jared Love as a result of the battle there between Massey and Love recently. So that's now forced Pickett forward, as meanwhile Love's falling backwards. Mark Collicott, meanwhile, on the back of Villa Katonen, and he's got the company of Elliott Court here. Pro drivers trying to pick their way past into drivers, and well, this always makes things a little bit tasty and testy. As you can see at the back of the screen, that's Nicholas Carlson. So the Bell Racing Team cars now looking to move forward. How can you tell who's Carlson versus Katonen? Well, Carlson does have the red stripe through the middle of the car. Meanwhile, Katonen has the light blue stripe. They've done that to be able to differentiate the cars there. A little bit of artwork on the livery, and very smart artwork at that. As we do see Court right now caught in the back of this battle between inter drivers, which is going to play patience. meanwhile, Brad Pickett has got Jared Love up the inside. That's going to be for second place in the interclass at the moment, which you're looking at as they make the way onwards. And it's going to be a drag race here, Ford versus Ferrari. This is the 2026 edition of the movie. And as they head up the hill, well, we can see that Ashley Coulton thinking about getting involved, but then he falls back in. It's brilliant how all three drivers that immediately know they've got to get out of fighting straight away. And as we jump aboard Ashley Coulton, well, he's still in the draft, and well, we should expect this Mercedes to gradually gain the legs on the Ferrari little by little, although that Ferrari, of course, does have that really odd sixth gear, whereby it's a very tall gear based on the balance of performance, which means in the draft on the straight, it's a monster gear, but by itself with no slipstream, it will struggle to pick up speed. Normally the Ferrari drivers stay in fifth for as long as they can, just to gain more miles per hour. But right on the way on for us, we say hello to Mark Kent in the YouTube chat. Hope you're doing well, Mark. Well, right now, Ashley Coulton on the attack here, and of course, Kent cheering on the Full Tilt Virtual Motorsport drives. We'll come back to them in due course, but Coulton right now finding himself still caught up behind Pickett there, cannot get in, and what's going to be a very frustrating race for Coulton, because right now he is caught in an inter-battle, which he does not want to be a big part of. Meanwhile, we come back to the club class. This is Martin Brandon looking to put some pressure on Christopher Petty. Petty really has been put under pressure so far. Understeers wide at Rivage Ben. Brandon on the inside. Elbows out between the two. Petty comes back there, but on that inside line, you're going to have to really lunge to get it done. That's how it'll work. So Brandon now up in the third place in the club class. Stones being flying off the back of his car. That's because of the dirt that's been pushed across the road. And there's going to be Butler up the inside of Petty. And then Jordan Butler says, you know what, why don't I kick a man when he's down? And therefore Butler moves up in the fourth place of the club class, and Petty loses 2 places to the price of 1 move for Martin Brandon. It was a fair move, to be fair. He just happened to be in the wrong place at the right time for Butler to be able to attack him as well. As they come through the right into left, well, meanwhile, we do see the long queue. I don't believe my eyes, ladies and gentlemen. These are all club drives. We are having a repeat of the Hockenheimring once again. We have a runaway leader at the moment in the form of Adam Lynch in the class, leading by 5 seconds, and Arno Progdt is 5 seconds ahead of Martin Brandon. And then you do have from Brandon all the way back, I kid you not, to Ashley Shucksmith in 16th place. You've got them all separated by approximately no more than what is 1.2 seconds from car to car. As Charlie Walker right now is trying to make his way on through here, and will Walker be able to do so? He will go around the outside of Shucksmith, but this club class right now, it is going to be absolutely on nails all the way through to the end. As Sean Clark, meanwhile, or Shawnee Clark as he's listed for Clark St James with DXT, well, right now he's got Walker looking for a move. He's going to go defensive, and well, in the end, Walker's going to go all the way around the outside, show why he's a pro driver, and gets it done there. Lovely bit of trail braking with Charlie Walker, knowing he had to make that move quickly. But with that, let's make our way back to the front. As we do in the pro class, Tomlinson-Dennis still leading, but gap now to Brandon Dyer up to 9 seconds. That is looking more confident and comfortable. And now Brandon Dyer finds himself under increasing pressure for second place in the class from Leon Seeley. Now Seeley wants a way in here, as Samantha Tam Racing would like to make it 1-2. Brandon Dyer right now is really going to be the fly in the ointment here. He's going to try and prevent the magical recipe from forming. That's come down the hill in towards Rivage Bend, where you see in that Corvette a lot more confident through the corners compared to the Mustang. Both of these cars, of course, arriving at the same time into the world of GT3 racing in real life in 2025, and both of them arriving on the simulator simultaneously as well. Big old introduction of American muscle. Well, as they come on in here, it's mid-engine rear-wheel drive chasing front-engine rear-wheel drive, and with 2 very different drivetrains, 2 very different cars in terms of how they gain their lap time. The Mustang very power-focused. Meanwhile, the Corvette has got a lot of torque in it, but also it's one of those cars that's very capable in the corners, so therefore cornering versus straight-line speed. And with Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps being a really balanced circuit, they'll both have their strengths and weaknesses highlighted throughout. On the way onwards, we can see that CD pushing hard to the point of running wide. They're all running wide there. They're all taking chances. That's going to be instant points being queued up. And well, they do have 18 of them before they get to a drive-through penalty, so you can take a tactical off-track or 2 at places where you won't be picking up an iRacing slowdown. But of course, you don't want to pick up those instant points too soon. So contact is worth 4 of them, for example. A loss of control is worth 2. And so add them up very quickly. That allows you to have 5 quite visceral contacts with another driver before you get a drive-through penalty. But throw a few instant points in there for off-tracks and loss of control. Although primarily you thought it would be off-tracks in this instance. And Sonny, you can't afford too much. But meanwhile, can he afford to outbrake Dyer on the brakes? Yes, he can, because Leon Seeley goes up the inside. Dyer tries to force it back. He does, to be fair to Brandon Dyer. These two are fighting hard right now, and I suspect Dyer's worried if he lets second place go, Seeley's going to run away with it. And Corey Price is onto the back of this. He wants Price to get involved here as they make their way through. Oh, who's that got for a spin in the rear of the picture? I can't quite tell. What I can tell you is someone's falling down the order like a stone. The answer to that question is going to be answered soon in terms of when they come. That's Ben Woodgate who's had a spin round that we saw in the rear of the picture. So to get a replay of that when we can, but Woodgate's had a bit of a nightmare moment in his race, and indeed it does mean that right now things going from good to bad to worse for so many drivers. However, right now, things are still going well for Corey Price, who just queues up behind the top three, and where he's going to be able to fuel save plenty here, as long as CD and Dyer keep fighting. But of course, the problem he has is the fact that as that fighting continues, it's going to enable Tomlinson-Dennis to gradually walk away. But up the inside goes CD, up the inside, tries Price as well, but Price in the end's too far back to make that move happen. CD got it done. Dyer had no response to Alberton, let it go, and Price thought, you know what, I'm going to give it a go as well, but that did not work. As you ride on board, the Dutchman for Darkwing Racing as he comes down in towards turn number 8. Now, if you'll bar my business, ladies and gents, well, I think his helmet looks like a basketball. At least that's what it's being phrased around. I wonder if he's a big NBA fan. Well, he's going to try and shoot some hoops here when he goes for third place, but can he slam dunk a move here? I don't think so, given how far back he is at the moment. But getting ready to dribble his way around through Pullman Bend. I'll put the basketball joke puns away very shortly, but right now, definitely not being able to find a way in. He tried it with the opportunity that CD offered to him, but in the end, he was forced to stay in fourth place instead. But now, well, he's going to have an opportunity to go on the attack. It's a V8 turbo-powered engine versus an naturally aspirated one, so therefore for Price, he'll think that at the high altitude points of the circuit, he may just have a little bit more air going through the engine, although it's not really going to make a difference here at Spa-Francorchamps. We don't have too high an altitude for it to make a significant difference. Well, we can see just behind Justin Hembery, 1.3 seconds adrift. The Daniel Newman are racing a red team, but he's bringing Harper, Peter Zim, Bauckhage and Schubert Cardozo to the party with him. Hold up, that's a car off the road there, and I believe that is Ross Young's car that's gone for a spin. He's already had a miserable start to the race, and this race right now has gone from good to bad to disastrous as quick as it possibly can for the Clark St James with DXT driver, and well, the Scotsman right now will be fuming about how this is going. But meanwhile, coming to the midst of the field, and particularly the interclass, well, this is Nicholas Carlson and Villa Katonen together. They're going to swap places in the end, going in towards Blanchemont, but there's better places to swap it, but they do what they do, and we're coming down to the bus stop chicane, just ahead of Mark Collicott. Collicott looks at that and thought to himself, you know what if I get involved and swallow the party, put some mental pressure on them? But still, Beowulf knowing exactly what to do, and a little bit of insight there from Soviets Geek in the YouTube chat, saying the other two Beowulf driver colours are yellow and green. We're not seeing them here on this grid, but it's good to know that, so they've got all four colours of the spectrum. And well, as they do make the way on down in towards La Source, blue and red here, Carlson being the red ahead of the blue of Katonen, and then we do have yellow and green being represented there, all but by two different teams, and of course the yellow there, DCW Racing Mark Collicott, and just behind the pro driver Elliot Court, who wants a way in. So it's funny how that all works out. Way up the hill. Bobby Moss, meanwhile, for the SimRacing Collective, the privateer, the sports driver, he's currently looking okay there, running in 9th place, just chasing after Adam Lynch, the club leader. They're bigger like 1.1 seconds behind at the moment, and the DCW Racing Yellow Drace had a good start. Started 15th, but a long way to the back. Casually picking up the pace little by little, but we will see Moss look around the outside here of Lynch. Is Lynch going to fight this? Well, in fact, up the inside Moss goes there in the battle of the two Porsches, and Lynch does not fight it at all. Lets it go. Smart move there, particularly when Adam Lynch has got a very comfortable gap now that has grown to the best part of what is 9 seconds over Arno Brogd, and therefore the MJK Sim Racing driver here just focusing on that second place with Eddie Fearbold. Well, he's come all the way through the foot. He's come from 14th in club to 3rd in class. He's had a monster start to this race, and in fact, Jordan Butler and Christopher Perry have fallen behind him, so I think there's been quite a bit of an ongoing between Butler and Petty. We need to find out. We need to find some replays as well, ladies and gentlemen, of some big moments, and well, we're going to bring you up to speed with it as we do make our way back in time to, of course, the race start. So this is how our race is started. Now do keep in mind as we look to the blimp camera, although it's not ideal, that the grid did start through what was the run of the last couple of quarters on towards turn 1. So therefore, that's why we had a sizable split in the field. You'll notice that as you look further back in the camera view, and the fact a lot of drivers were very tentative, making their way on through the bus stop chicane. So that's why we had the notable gap. There were a couple of little sideways moments here from drivers further back in the field, but all the way back, that was Daniel Page starting from the pit lane, and then we did have the club drivers all coming through, but Eddie Fearbold, looking how far back he started, it really is a big question of how he came on through the field as everyone took their time. But as we did go green flag racing, we did have this early on from Mikhail Abasek, and this was Abasek to the grass. How on earth did he get there? I do wonder that. It's before he's even got to the bus stop chicane. If somebody tapped him on the rear, I think someone has. Here's a replay to find out what he's happened. Well, he's been tapped by somebody. We're not going to be able to get the footage, but Abasek in the end had to turn it around. So he was knocked before he even got started. So it went wrong for him. But then we had this for Philip Harris as we went green flag racing on to lap 1. So Harris making his way down the hill through what was Pullman Bend. As he did so, rear of the car letting go entirely. Of course, that was the big shunt to the barrier when he was running in 2nd place in the interclass, and it went well into the club class, I should say, and he fell all the way down the order as a result of that error. We had this month for Alfred Kirstein only moments later. And this was Gerstein at the time for Simstrat by Glass Tech Racing. He was under a bit of pressure. Wrong for him at Blanchimont-Benne. The answer is he had to put the brakes on. The rear of the car completely let go. Ooh, goodness me. Thankfully not bounced off that inside wall there, but it was a big scary bump. That's why he had the brakes. So I think he felt the car was going. So the Dane doing his best to make sure the car did not completely let go. We had this for Nathan Healy on the open lap. Well, in fact, this was the aftermath of the Full Tilt Virtual Motorsport car. What happened to it beforehand? I think Blanchimont has bitten another driver, and the answer is yes, it did, because this is what happened to the Irishman. Made his way in towards turn 17. The rear of the car completely let go there, went for the pirouette, but unfortunately, it went to the barrier as well, and the Full Tilt Virtual Motorsport driver, thankfully okay by the looks of things, but the car definitely not okay. We also did have this battle for Carl Roy on lap number 2. This was Roy making his way up the hill with a wounded Aston Martin. And, well, it went spinning around there, come through Rouge Radion. I think the car grounded. Oh, my good Lord! And in the end, both cars to barrier. Another car as well. It was a Lamborghini. I couldn't quite see whose it was, but Justin Noel being caught up in all of that. So, as they made the way up, that was Noel's car that was already crumpled due to contact earlier. And it looks like Roy's car just scraped out, and it led to a... Oh, my good Lord! Multiple cars all coming into the scene in the instant, all in long queue. This is what it looked like from Chris Cole's perspective as he made his way on down afterwards because he picked up the damage. That explains where his front bumper went, and that's why as he made his way through what was Les Combes, the car just went straight on there with the damage it picked up. So that explains his story. We did have this for Ashley Shucksmith on lap number 2 as well. And the privateer was making his way on down. He was okay. He made his way unhindered out of that instant. And unfortunately, I think clipped there by the Dexterous Motorsports car that was trying to go straight on. So that explains what happened between them. Unfortunate for Shucksmith, and I don't think the DXT car had anywhere really to go at that point. This was Bradley Setters on lap number 2. I think this is a car that got wounded as a result of Blanchimont-Benne. Yes, it is. We go back in time. We do apologise here for jump cutting a lot of the replay footage. The relentless racing driver making his way through what was Blanchimont, and as he did so, rear of the car completely letting go there. So Blanchimont claiming a third victim today. And then we did have this on lap number 4 for Sam Hockley and Adrian Howard. So this was Hockley, the privateer, making his way down towards La Source Bend on lap 4. Chasing after what was the DCW Racing car, went into the corner and pranged on the rear, I think, by Adrian Howard, and that's why Howard parked up there. Oh, and well, unfortunately, that was the Jägermeister machine collecting Hockley. I think that might have been one of the cars for MJK Sim Racing, and well, for Hockley, it went from good to bad to worse in the space of a quarter. Ben Woodgate as well had this happen to on lap number 4. We caught a brief moment of this. This was the big spin coming out of the bus stop chicane. But what exactly went wrong for him as he made his way out to the corner? And the answer is got the power down, had the sausage curb on his left tyre, his rear left tyre, and that's what sent the car spinning. But with that, we make our way back to your live racing, ladies and gentlemen, because otherwise we're going to miss more than 5 minutes of racing. We don't want to do that. So, some big stories there. And as we do carry on, well, still more racing to come. But at the front, Milton Tomlinson-Dennis overall right now for Samantha Town Racing, running away with this, but Leon Seeley is not running away with that second place at the moment. As you see, Corey Price, he's there. He has found his way past Brandon Dyer, so we are going to get a replay of that shortly as to how he made that move. But now he's on the attack here. That happened 3 laps ago. And Price really, I think, itching here for that second place. Well, the pace in that Aston Martin is staggering, given how he's coming on so strong. Could this all be part of strategy for Samantha Town Racing? Could they be right now trying to fuel save as much as possible to be able to essentially make sure they've got a long opening stint and give themselves flexibility when the rain does arrive? Because remember, we are going to see all drivers on slicks at the moment. So when that rain does arrive, presuming it rains enough to force drivers onto slicks, well, understandably here, you want the fuel to be able to take you into the rain period. You need to give yourself all the options you can. But as they make the way up the hill, we do take a look back very quickly at what exactly happens when they were priced to get ahead of Dyer. So this was towards the end of lap 5. So we cut away from this. Car went sideways. And, well, that was the DXT Motorsports car. I think that was Ross Young getting it wrong. And in the end, Corey Price side by side with Dyer coming out of Stavlo 2 and went around the outside before Blanchimont-Benne. I think Dyer did lift a little bit there. It looks like he backed off before the corner and did not want to fight it. But meanwhile, whilst all that was happening, for this was Eddie Fearbold having a big moment as he tried to make his way forward. And this was passing Jordan Butler on lap number 5. And this was for, at the time at least, none other than third place in the class. He looked one way than the other. Butler went defensive and in fact backed off there. I think he had a slowdown penalty to serve from cutting track limits, and Fearbold completing his run to third place, but he has since been into the pit lane as Fearbold, and I believe that might be for some damage to the car. But back to your live racing we come, and as we do, still more work to be done by so many drivers, but Theobald in fact, Theobald's already gone to the wet tyre in the pit lane, ladies and gentlemen. That's a gamble. Now, the cameras, we have adjusted our cameras for the purposes of this broadcast going forward, so we should be able to see the rain when it comes, because sometimes the rain starts to fall. We don't get to see it on the circuit side cameras until it becomes really aggressive, so we don't get to see the fine drizzle. Now, one thing we can do, of course, to find out is right on board with a driver. It's Elliot Court will tug up the inside there of Jared Love, his teammate, but of course in the interclass versus the pro class driver, but they swap around and both drivers there, no signs of rain, but it's getting very dark here over the circuit, and also I am starting to feel a little bit of a wind picking up as we've got 2 by 2 here coming out of Stavlo 2. Well, this is not a common sight. That's Raz Harper and Luke Van Goertel side by side, and that's going to be the interleader here being passed up the inside by pro drivers. Leighton Austin's going to gamble on the inside. This is risky business. There's contact between the two. Van Goertel is elbowed wide, but in the end he survives it. He picks up a slowdown for running wide, and right now still there with Leighton Austin. I think the MJK Sim Racing driver, after all this is done, well, he's going to carry on. He's going to have to burn that slowdown shortly, but I do wonder whether in reality he's going to be sat in the car shortly after, thinking to himself, was it really worth it when you have got a 6-second gap to this man, Brad Pickett, second of the inter drivers? Well, we'll have to wait and see whether he realises that afterwards or not, but that slowdown, if he doesn't get rid of it soon, that will be upgraded to a stop and hold penalty. He does burn it, as Brad Pickett, meanwhile, second of your inter drivers, looking cool, calm and collected. Meanwhile, we come back to the second of your pro drivers, and Neil Seeley right now looking cool despite the pressures. That's an Aston Martin we get a faceful of. That's Corey Price's car, but Price here just staying absolutely glued to the back. And I think Price now is in full fuel-saving mode here. He's going to just see if he can potentially put Seeley under some pressure. But Leon Seeley and not Wilton under it at the moment as the flames spit out the back of the Corvette C8 Stingray and roared his way on down towards turn number 8. Right now, this battle is building. You see Price again pulling out there, trying to give himself some clear track and just putting some pressure on to the 321 driver. But Seeley responding very comfortably at the moment, at least. Meanwhile, as this battle goes on, just behind, we still do have, of course, Justin Hembery. He's in 6th place overall, and in pro, keeping he's Nils Bauckhage in company as they fight over 5th place. And these two heading on down the hill still, as we do say hello to Mikhail Avasek, who I do believe may have retired from this race due to the instance earlier on. And if so, well, it's good to have you still with us, Mikhail, although sorry to see it's gone very wrong, as we do see a bit of a run wide there from the car of none other than Nils Bauckhage. So I wonder if he's just pushing a bit too hard at the max. No rain visible at least, but it's really coming over dark. I think rain could come at any moment, and when it does, well, suddenly everyone's going to think about when do they change to the wet tyre. Is it the right time? Is it not the right time? Schubert Cardozo, with nothing to lose, it would seem, has come in as well. He's gone to the wet tyre, but he's out there at the moment, and he has got behind him Ollie Smith and Bradley Setters, both on slicks, so therefore those two will very quickly make the one through. The problem, of course, is by switching to the wet tyre so soon, when you have got a relatively dry circuit, you are going to overheat that tyre very quickly. And with that, it means you actually start to rip the tread blocks of the wet tyre before it gets an opportunity to be used as it should do. The tread blocks are there to push water out from underneath the tyre and therefore give you grip on a wet surface. The slick has no tread block on it, so therefore it aquaplanes on the tyre. It rides over the water and doesn't touch the tarmac in the worst case scenario, hence the phrase aquaplaning as you ride on it. As our drivers head onwards, well, that's a change of place there. Ben Woodgate gets ahead of Biggerdite. Biggerdite lets it go for overall at 23rd, going to hand to Woodgate, who's on a bit of a recovery drive at the moment after his spin coming out of the bus stop chicane. With his spin, things not going quite right. Well, at the very front of the field, still going right here for Milton Tomlinson-Dennis. And Leon Seeley still bringing Price and Dyer to the party. No change between these three. Although Brandon Dyer at the moment, I think, just focusing on making sure he can save the fuel. This Ford Mustang, of course, very thirsty on fuel. It's one of the thirstiest in GT3. Price, oh goodness me. I thought he was going for a very late lunge there, ladies and gentlemen. That made me skip a beat because, well, there's going late and then there is going so late that you've missed your stamp duty, because that was going to be the mother of all sins of the Dartwick racing driver. Well, Corey Price did not go for it, but I think Seeley looked in his mirror and then had to do a double check to make sure there was no Aston Martin there. But that was definitely right at the last moment. But Price right now trying to tease out every mistake he can from Seeley. Meanwhile, further back, Nicholas Carlson. He's on the back of Mark Collicott for 4th place in the interclass. The battles have calmed down to a degree. Everyone's now starting to fan out, although our club class still does have a lot of drivers very close together as you look to your individual class standings on the left-hand side of your screen. And we're speaking of a close battle at the moment. Dwayne Hoffman here, side by side with Martin Brandon. Now, it's going to be Hoffman on the right of your picture in the Full Tilt Virtual Motorsport Lamborghini, and he will pass Brandon. The battle of the two Audi-powered cars. Of course, that Lamborghini does have an Audi engine in it, but they will be moving to a Lamborghini-made engine, I do believe, the next GT3 challenger. So therefore, the collaboration between Audi and Lamborghini will come to an end as there's the rain. The rain does arrive, and James Fraser immediately says, right, if Brandon's off pace, if he's offline, I'm going to try and poke and move up the inside. But as I head on down and through, well, right now, this could be the point where we get to the tricky transition. Now, it's not rain everywhere at the moment. We just saw a little bit there on one camera, so it looks like the rain might be gradually creeping in. It will be coming in from essentially what would be, if my sense of direction is correct, it would be coming in from the eastern side of the circuit. Well, that means our drivers are going to see it what will be quite quickly in the middle of the lap, and we're seeing it here as well at Rivage. So it seems to be coming in southeastern and head towards what will be a northwestern direction, but this could definitely right now upset some tyre temperature. But our pro leaders will not be aware the rain's arrived yet, 'cause it won't be falling where they are. There you go, you can see it's a dry circuit at the moment. Leon Seeley is under pressure, and Corey Price here as they make the way onwards. They're going to be heading into a wet circuit shortly, albeit it will be starting to get wet. It'll be starting to feel a little bit damp. It will be quote unquote greasy perhaps, but it won't be lightly wet yet until the rain really starts to come down. But Price right now all over the back of Seeley like a bad rash. Dyer, meanwhile, is 8 tenths behind, but there's the rain on the camera. They're driving into it now. So here comes Seeley looking for a potential move. Well, in fact, potential defence versus Price. Price does go around the outside. Is he going to have the grip here? The answer is yes, he does. Go for it. Does Price get it done? The Derby Racing driver does. Lovely move there. Even on slick tyres that are starting to lose their temperature. Corey Price at the end, he's in it to win it. He's 100-0, this man. And when in the end, he gets 100 out of 100 for that pass. And Leon Seeley and Brandon Dyer now queue up behind him. Meanwhile, it's Brad Pickett currently in second for Clarkson James with DXT in the interclass. He's over the back of Elliot Court for 14th overall. He's got a bit of a gap to Jared Love, who's 3 seconds behind. You see him in the rear of the picture, but Love is bringing Carlson and Collicott to the party with him. And that is your top 5 in the interclass, excluding your leader of Luke van Gertel, who is 6.7 seconds clear, making amends it would seem for the Hockenheimring at the moment at least. What about the other battles out there? Dwayne Hoffman, after clearing the Audi of Martin Brandon, which is into the pits to go onto the wet tyre, of which we will show you the tyre compound on your time tower, ladies and gentlemen, and also those overall standings, so you see where everyone fits in. Top 40 right now, all dry runners, so all slick runners, but we are seeing that range just gradually building here. So it's about who picks the right time to come in, and we're almost at the halfway point of this race. So I think a few drivers want to go at least one lap longer just to extend the fuel tank out and balance out the race. Might not be that easy to do as Hoffman looks to go on the attack. Jared Love, meanwhile, is under attack from Nicholas Carlson. Love is really struggling here with Carlson, and Carlson's all over the back of him like nobody's business. So they make the way through Stavlo 2, and Love struggling at quarter exit. There's so much understeer. You can see the spray starting to come from the rear of the car. We are now starting to get to the point where the wet tyres need to go on, but as we do, well, Samantha Racing, they've got their pit crews out there doing a double stop for Tomlinson-Dennis and Seeley. Meanwhile, Price and Dye have gone into another lap at the front of the field, so we're at the 50-50 crossover point at this point, it would seem, and well, it's a 50-50 here. Will Carlson get the move on the inside of Love? The answer is yes. I don't think Love's got a response here, and Jared Love's coming immediately to the pit lane. He needs to. He does not look happy in that car at all, and will cut to the white line here, but hopefully he'll get away with that. And as he makes way, and Mark Collicott comes in, Alfred Kirsten also comes in. So is it right to come in on lap 12, or should you have gone another lap? This is going to be the ultimate question now. Corey Price leads this race for the first time today. Is the Aston Martin driver getting things right here? We know this Aston Martin, given the fact that it does have quite a bit of turbo, like a low RPM, actually makes it a really good car for the wet conditions, because you can put the throttle down a little bit more aggressively coming out of quarters, and you don't have to worry, as long as you're not using too low a gear, you don't have to worry about excessive wheel spin. So that's going to be to Price's advantage, whereas Brandon Dyer, meanwhile, is going to have to really flip the traction control around, which they can do inside the cockpit. They do have all the buttons and knobs inside the steering wheel. Well, for Brandon Dyer right now, he's going to start to turn the car down a little bit to make sure he gets that traction out the corners. Also adjust the ABS there for the wet conditions. As meanwhile, we do see a change here. That is going to be later off to be passed around the outside by Benjamin Massey. Massey coming alive here, and I wonder where Inox Motorsport, given the fact that Massey was struggling in qualifying, I wonder if they've set this car up today for the wet conditions only. He's all over the back of Bauckhage as they come down towards Pullman Bend, but that is one way you can go about a race like this, which is it all comes down to setup as well. He dives up the inside. That's a lovely move from Massey. That's the car set out for these conditions. I think Inox Motorsport, and I somehow get the feeling that Mikhail Abasek right now in the YouTube chat is going to be grinning here to see Ben flying up the field, and well, making a move on another driver here. He's going to go up the inside of the lap down car of Ross Young as he creeps his way on through, and that'll be a change there. But in fact, that's Martin Kenyon's car. Let me correct myself there. The Ferrari and the Lamborghini looking similar in silhouette to a degree, but a bit of a change between them. Meanwhile, Charlie Walker on the slick tyre at the moment. Well, fighting side by side with Leon Seeley, and Seeley's on a wet tyre. He's trying to get warmed up at the moment, so Seeley's struggling a little bit. Walker has pitted, but keep in mind he pitted on the open lap due to damage on the car, so therefore we expect he's got to come in for a strategic stop at some point, but he is on a slick tyre as well, so he's going to struggle for pace as the circuit gets wetter and wetter. We're just about to hit 30 minutes into this race, and right now we can see the highest placed drivers who have pitted to go to the wet tyre, Milton Tomlinson-Dennis, but Price and Dyer into the pit lane as meanwhile, oh, there's a front bumper missing for Massey's car. He's got to have had a moment with Blanchard, surely. Oh, it's Luke Van Goertel. That's Van Goertel who's gone off as well. Look who's coming up behind him like an absolute rampant rash. It is Brad Pickett as the Clarkson James car heads onwards, and well, the Infinite Sim Racing car takes the grass. Oh my goodness, and in the end, Luke Van Goertel doing rallycross there. He does know it's a road race, right? Because Brad Pickett beats him into the pit lane, and Van Goertel may have also picked up a slowdown, but they're all into the pit lane here. They're all falling off the road, it would seem. This isn't quite Spa-Francorchamps 2023 in the World Endurance Championship. We're almost at that point as they all coming in. Remember, all coming in off of slicks to go to wets. Right now, it's change afoot, and I think for Milton Tomlinson-Dennis, he's timed this perfectly. And the STR team have got this absolutely spot on as he makes his way around. Raz Harper as well pitted with them at the time. And, well, is it enough as Corey Price? In fact, no, it's not. Price is out there already and Brandon Dyer is as well. So it wasn't right to pit on lap 12. It was lap 13 if you could survive it. And Corey Price is now in to lead this race by 3 seconds out of Brandon Dyer. But meanwhile, Milton Tomlinson-Dennis, as they all pour out the pit lane, he returns to racing in what will be 5th place just ahead of Benjamin Massey. So even though Massey's had a shunt with the barrier and they've quickly repaired it with the fast repair available, we have one of those, of course, available in the Superstars race, none in Masters. Well, suddenly, Tomlinson-Dennis, they played it safe at Samantha Town Racing. It wasn't the right call, at least to be the leaders, but will they now have the pace to chase down the lead? That's the question, as meanwhile we have lost Corey Price in this race for a brief moment. In fact, he's back. We thought Brandon Dyer was going to inherit the lead there, but there's Price, you can see off in the picture. So Price had a bit of a discontinuity for a brief moment, but it is all chop and change at the moment, ladies and gentlemen, and well, this is definitely putting this race on absolute tendrils or tenterhooks at the moment. Meanwhile, we look further down the order, it's all chop and change in the club class with Giles and Harrison to the pit lane as well. They're both trying to make up some ground. Jack Giles leaving the pits, he's almost to the pit limiter line, there he goes, and now exiting out. Will he come out ahead of a driver or two? He will, he'll be ahead of Dwayne Hoffman. So Jack Giles, by going that little bit longer, has actually come out in 3rd place in club. He's made another a huge jump, and he's moved all the way up the order. He's up into 3rd here in club. So Giles going from 10th to 3rd over the course of the first stint. It's been up, down and around, and James Fraser, meanwhile, he's leapt up to 2nd as a result of all this, but Adam Lynch is still the constant at the very front of the club class. Now we are seeing a question from none other than Mark Kent in the YouTube chat saying, what on earth has happened to Jordan Butler? He's dropped all the way to the back of the fielding club. As we've got a black flag for David Biggerdite, I believe that is going to be for speeding in the pit lane for Biggerdite from what I'm hearing in my ear, as Butler makes about the hill, understeering wide. Well, the full tilt virtual motorsport driver seems to be struggling at the moment in his conditions. He'll pick up a slow down there for track limits already on. He had to burn that. That's only going to hurt him even more. Well, what exactly has happened to Butler prior to that? Has there been a bit of an incident for him? Yes, there has. And, well, here's the story to explain it, ladies and gentlemen. So this was Butler making his way in towards Les Combes, and the FTVM car sliding around. This, I believe, was before he went to the slick tyre, I may be incorrect, and he had a spin there as a result, and that's what sent him around and on the grass, and will either way on tyres that have no temperature. He's had to drive quite a way backwards to get it rotated onto a runoff area. He couldn't get it done on the grass, understandably, and then tried to get the power down, and had to very carefully bring it back onto the road, and that explains why Butler has lost so many places. And then he had this happen on lap 14, although I do believe, well, this was a lap later at the exact same corner complex, and well, the car, well, as he made his way through, in the end went on it, understeered wide, so Jordan Butler struggling massively out there and not looking happy at all. So that explains what happened to Jordan Butler, but what else is going on now? We're back to your live pictures. Well, Raz Harper and Joris Peters Wiemer together, and the BMW driver we haven't really talked about too much, the Dutchman, the 351. he's trying to go on the attack. But speaking of attacks, we've got plenty of drivers showing on the attack here. And Bauckhage all over the back of Austin. Runs a little bit wide there. That's going to be a slowdown, unfortunately, for him. And the problem is he's got so much pace. But when he's so close to the back of Austin's car, it hasn't got the pace. He's losing time, albeit he lifts off quite easily there. And Leighton Austin goes as defensive as he can down the Kemmel Straight. As you see Martin Brandon's Audi pulling aside there to respect the fact they're going a lap down. But Bauckhage goes around the outside. Is it going to work? It is. And that means your NJB Performance Privateer now moves up into 9th place in Pro and overall. Lovely move. And that's going to go round for Leighton Austin. And well, does he get it stopped? He does off the racing line. It's his teammate there. Well, actually, Coulton almost went into the side of him. I think Coulton had to literally put the brakes on very slowly to make sure he did not follow him around. And Leighton Austin, in the end, the rear of that car just let him go. And in the end, well, it had nowhere to go other than towards the inside of the circuit. So a big error from him. But back to the front of the club class we go. Adam Lynch in 24th place at the moment, looking to be in full control as he is trying to get ahead of the car. And I do believe that's the car of Stephen Kershaw that he's following at the moment. And we'll car off the road. I think that's Alfred Kirsten who's taking a little bit of an exploratory drive, unless I'm mistaken. That's your 271 car. And well, the answer to that question is, well, I believe it is Kirsten, in fact, as he carries on. But as they come on down, well, right now Adam Lynch here definitely in a happy place. But he does have James Fraser trying to push on quite hard. We say hello to his brother Liam in the YouTube chat, and the Moonshiners Racing Club driver right now trying to find that optimum line. He is flying out there, it must be said, at the moment. He was 1.6 seconds faster than Lynch on that previous lap. Now we don't know whether there's a little bit of traffic in the way in terms of having to pass drives who may not be as quick, or you have to negotiate cars. But meanwhile, Benjamin Massey, well, that's not how you negotiate. Stavlo 2, the Onyx Motorsport drive is very wide out there. Ross Young was claimed by that earlier, albeit that was in the dry. The rain is really starting to come down now, and for Benjamin Massey, that's gone so wide to the point he's almost ended up in the next village. But as he brings it back together, he would be in the village of Stavlo at that point. Well, the British driver here down to 13th place overall, 12th in class. So it's all chop and change at the moment, it would seem, as he heads onwards. We've got a black flag for Mark Collicott, as I believe that's at instant points. He's had a spin. That's on the exit of Stavlo 2 as well. I suspect touching the exit curve with the rear left tyre, and the curve has said it doesn't like him. But he won't like this at all, and we try to take a look back at what exactly happened to the DCW Racing blue car. So out to Stavlo 1 he went, touched the white line, turned in, and as he did so, the rear of the car just did not have the grip there, and I think it's just the rear being unbalanced from the front, and he didn't touch any white lines at that point. DCW Racing Blue tried to hit in the barrier, and unfortunately that's been enough to push him towards what is a drive-through penalty. But back to your last racing. Well, we've got even more to go as Collicott in. And, well, from him, what exactly has happened to some other drives out of here? Plenty of questions in the chat as Philip Harris rejoins. That's on the exit of the Fangers chicane. So he's dropped down from 9th to 10th there in the club class. The Euro Titans endurance driver who's not having a happy day at all. He started 4th in club today, and things are going from good to bad to worse very quickly. And Eddie Fearbold as well, who at one point was chasing down the win in the interclass, or in the club class we should say, but for Fearbold it has gone backwards as well. I'll try that instance. This has just happened to Fearbold. And well, he's already missing a rear wing there for an off-track, so something tells me, well, that was coming out of Lecombe and Malmedy into the garage, and with no rear wing on that car, that was going nowhere but sideways. And this is what happened originally to Fearbold before he did have the instant. Well, it was already missing a rear wing there, so he's had an instant, and subsequently tried to come through turn number 7 and no rear wing on the car to keep it planted. But back to your live race to become for a brief moment. As we do, well, we're not going to keep cutting to too many more replays because we want to maintain some continuity with the racing that's going on. But Milton Tomlinson-Dennis, at the moment at least, continues to make his way onwards. He has passed Justin Hembery, and well, his next target now is going to be Brandon Dye. His pace, at least at the moment, based on the previous laps, 3 seconds a lap faster than the two drivers in front of him as a minimum. In fact, almost 4 seconds faster than Corey Price. So Tomlinson-Dennis, despite the fact he may have gone a lap too soon, well, it seems as though Samantha Town Racing, they decided to play caution, and the setup on the car seems to be very much set up for these wet conditions, albeit Tomlinson-Dennis is flying. Leon Seeley is still trying to find some pace. Going through and the Blanchimont bend at the moment. Well, the 329 drive's got still more work to do, as Justin Hembery, they're running a bit wide. Raz Harper following him off the road. Well, both tries getting away with that. That will just be a small off-track as classified. So not anything for them to worry about, perhaps. They've got the instant points to spare. you see Brandon Dyer has been caught up so quickly. And look at Tomlinson-Dennis, the speed coming onto the start finish straight there. Low speed bend, mid-engine rear-wheel drive is always going to have an advantage on traction, especially in the wet. And going into that braking zone now, well, that's going to be Tomlinson-Dennis at the inside. Meanwhile, Raz Harper dives the inside of Hembery there, goes all in. That was 100 or nothing there. And well, in the end, Justin Hembery on that outside line is going to lose out. So Raz Harper risks it all and moves into 4th place. It's for Mustang, and now we targeted Brandon Dyer. Could Harper come through here? Could he potentially make it onto the podium? He is looking very confident, it must be said, in a Ford Mustang that normally doesn't go too well in the wet, but he seems to have got the right setup on the car, and well, therefore he's going to roll with it. But now for Tomlinson-Dennis, he's now got to 2nd place, got to find another 8 seconds over the remaining 21 minutes and a final lap. Now, the theory will be that's possible. Meanwhile, we look to what's also possible here. This is Ben Woodgate versus Benjamin Massey. It's the battle of the bends, and who exactly is going to be the better of the two bends? Well, Woodgate will tuck in behind, and oh my good lord, and that's the rear of the car going loose on Massey. Woodgate in the end taps him on the rear, having nowhere to go. Benjamin Massey survives it. They both survive it. I think that contact between the two actually helped them both get the car straightened out. But in the end, Benjamin Massey almost let go, and Woodgate gets on through, and well, Woodgate had nowhere to go there, and I think Massey will recognise that straight away, given how close they were. But Massey just lost the rear of the car, and Woodgate had to take very late reactive actions. But meanwhile, Leon Seeley up the inside of Joris Petersveen now takes 6th place off of him. So Seeley on a bit of a mission, coming down for expend, and Petersveen, after looking good coming out the pit lane in his BMW M4 Evo, he's now not looking as strong. It was similar to the BMW started to hit a little bit of a brick wall. But I do see a question there from James Knight asking what happened to Hockley. He's dropped 8 places in the last lap out of nowhere, and well, we have an answer for you, and it happened on lap number 14. Here it is. Now, this was Sam Hockley at the time, and his Aston Martin making his way into Stablo 2. Took a wide line on entry, got the power down, and pretty much like what happened to other DCW drives earlier on, Hockley went around, the car rolled backwards, and well, in the end, didn't know where to have the brakes on or let it keep rolling. That's a very difficult call for him, but he got it right in the end, and was he went to rejoin. That's how he lost all 8 places. It was a whole pack of cars coming through, a lot of club drives and that, so Hockley now is going to have a mammoth task ahead of him if he wants to make his way forward to chase down 8th place in the Intercars, which is in the hands of Mark Collicott, and that means that Hockley is currently 9th in Inter and 31st overall. But as we come back to your live racing, well, speaking of Hockley, he's going to make a move here immediately on Max Dean, or is he? Max Dean, remember, started from the very back of the field, and right now still in the fight. And well, Hockley trying to creep his way through, but doing so tentatively there as Dean defending outside. At turn number 7, Dean running 6th here in the club class. He's had a very impressive race, to be fair, given how it started with the British driver, having got all the way from 16th to 6th, but well, right now, I don't think he really wants to fight with Hockley. I think his goal will be just to try and move forward, because he's got Jack Giles and also Honor Proctor and Rob Gregg catched up quite quickly. Speaking of which, as they go too wide through expend, and Hockley tries to go round the outside, which he does, well, you can see that group behind catching up, and Hockley in the end will get cleared just about. A lovely move around the outside of X and gets it all done. So Sam Hockley moves forward, and meanwhile, whilst that's all changed, we look to Brandon Dyer, who's getting past he's being passed by Raz Harper potentially. In fact, Harper just absolutely charges through. We've got a car off the road. That's Sean Clark, who's parked up off the road. And we're going to need a replay about exactly what happened there, because I think Brandon Dyer made an absolute mountain out of the hill. There was the run of Uruj into Radio, and he survived it with Raz Harper clearing him. I think for Dyer, that was very much almost sideways for him, and here's the replay to explain. So this was the two of them starting their battle going into what was La Source Bend. Dyer went a little bit deep, Harper went for the switchback, and well, Harper in the end looks very comfortable with that. Making the way on was there, it was too wide going into Uruj, but as they got ready for it, Harper was a nose ahead at least, but Dyer came back at him, and Harper backed off. So Brandon Dyer had the momentum up the hill, but then the car twitched loose on him, and Harper was able to go around the outside. That's brave from Harper, and that is trust in Brandon Dyer, and in the end, both of them got it together. Brandon Dyer to pull the car down because it was so sideways, and Raz Harper taking that 3rd place. Meanwhile, as that happened, we also did have, of course, this big one for Ben Woodgate and Benjamin Massey. It was the overtake that surprised everybody. It all began, of course, with a run down towards turn number 1 with Woodgate trying to go round at the outside of Massey. And boy, it didn't quite work there as he tried to make that overtake happen. Went onto the brakes, and Woodgate did quite confidently put himself into the lead of that battle for a moment, but then went very deep and had the rear of the car twitch loose. But after that, it was a 2-wide run up the hill, and for Ben Woodgate, this is probably one of the scariest moments he'll ever have going into Uruj and Radion. With Benjamin Massey got ahead in the Mercedes that was more comfortable on the straight. But then suddenly, you're going to see he's going to hit the apex curve of Uruj, and a big prang on the rear there. And well, where it was, Massey had nowhere to go, and neither did Woodgate, but they both just about survived it for 11th place in the Pro class. with that, back to your live race to become, ladies and gentlemen. And a big moment there, but they've all got through it. More moments potentially to come. Now, what's been happening elsewhere, we've been talking a lot about the front of the field. We come back to the rear of the field in the club class because Denny Ploger is on the back of Philip Harris and Jack Giles at the moment. And Giles is at a race that's gone from good to great to backwards to bad. And right now, it might be a case, it might be going to disappoint at this race. He's got Philip Harris and Ploger behind him. Ploger wants to pick off Harris firstly. And, well, we have had an instant for Leon Seeley off camera, we're hearing in our ear. We will be giving you a replay of that shortly, because that's a big change in the pro class. There comes Denny Ploger up the inside of Harris. Can he get this done to get into the top 10 of the club drives? The answer is no. And we have to wait just that little bit longer as he continues to snake behind. But the 108 driver at the moment, he's got the pace, but the problem is that Harris is making it hard for him to overtake, understandably. And well, we've got a moderate amount of rain coming down at the moment. We have got a moderately wet circuit at this point. It's not heavy rain, nor is it a heavy wet circuit at the moment, but it will be trending there very gradually. And I think the final 5 minutes, we're going to see the circuit. If the rain continues at the pace it's coming down, this circuit is definitely going to turn into a very tricky one to find a racing line on. Logan right now falling back there, and this middle sector seems to be Harris's to enjoy as they head onwards. But we do leave them behind for a brief moment, and we come back to the front of the field because here is Corey Price. And after what was a lot of the gap being shredded down by Milton Tomlinson-Dennis, it seems though Price now has found a way to maximise his pace, and Tomlinson-Dennis is now the one who's trying to close him down. But Tomlinson-Dennis' last lap, as you see him here, was 4 seconds slower. I wonder where he's potentially been caught up behind another driver, or he's made a big mistake because Raz Harper has got within a second of him already. I think it might be a mistake for Tomlinson-Dennis, and I wonder if the Samantha 10 Racing drivers have got this car set up to be good in the wet, but they have to drive it very aggressively. And that's a double-edged sword because, of course, the quicker you drive it, the more confident it will be. But, of course, you've got to drive on the limit there as he goes very wide out of Pearl Bend. That's not normal. I do think right now that for Tomlinson-Dennis, the writing may be on the wall here saying you're trending backwards rather than forwards at this point, and that Lamborghini is not looking happy, as I think he's just adjusting here to the fact this circuit's now starting to get quite a bit of standing water, and you can see having to drive offline there to find the pace. But of course, go to those exit curves and touch them, you've got to have the steering straight, otherwise that car is going around. But with all the chop and change, whilst for Tomlinson-Dennis something has definitely gone a little bit wrong, well, things went massively wrong for Leon Seeley only months ago, and here's a replay. Because he was at the time chasing after Justin Hembery for 5th place in class, went into the braking zone here for the bus stop chicane, cut across, and that's going to be a little bit contentious there, because on initial inspection you would think that perhaps Hembery has tapped Seeley on the back. Yes, he has. However, the argument now between the two drivers is, was Seeley entitled to come across that aggressively, or did Hembery at that point, was he already committed to the braking zone? A bit of a contentious moment, and well, we'll leave it there. That's what the stewards perhaps look at, but that explains how Seeley dropped back into that position, and in fact he's now making his way back up the order, because we've just had an incident for Justin Hembery. You couldn't make this up, ladies and gentlemen. Hembery's just been in a moment of his own, and well, we're going to stop cutting to replays there because we're going to lose things. And well, here's Justin Hembery on the back of Richard Simnor. Brad Pickett and Nils Bauckhage are right behind as they make the way in towards lap number 20. And well, as we do see NJB performance driver with Brad Pickett, the interleader, glued to the back of him. Jared Love is not too far behind this either. So with Elliot Court thrown into the mix, it does seem as though DDK Racing right now in looking at a double top 10 for their drivers, one in pro, one in the interclass. But understanding for Jared Love, all he'll be thinking about here is the fact that he could make it back-to-back wins. It all will come down to the final at 12.5 minutes, and of course that final lap. Third place in the interclass at the moment is Villa Katonen, who is 16 seconds behind this battle as we do look to the class standings. So therefore Katonen, he's got a long way to go if he wants to catch up. Jared Love at the moment has got plenty of clear space to work with. He's got less pressure from behind as he twitches his way out of Rouge onto Radion. And that does mean this car right now, but shaking around a little bit, perhaps hitting some standing water or some flowing water down the hill. But either way, Jared Love hoping to keep it together, at least at this point in the day. But as the spray is really starting to come front down the Kemble Straight at low speeds, we are really now into moderate transition towards what will be heavy wet conditions at this rate. If not, well, the circuit right now is definitely seeing who exactly knows where the best line is. The racing line is no longer a racing line. Instead, is the optimal wet line now that they're going to have to target. It will not be easy. But further back, here's Arno Prague side by side with Philip Harris, trying to go round the outside, coming all the way through Stavlo 1 into Stavlo 2, it doesn't quite work. And well, the Dutchman right now in the Jägermeister machine, just ahead of Martin Kenyon, who's an into-dry who'd like to pick his way through. And Kenyon, of course, going a lap down earlier on, where he's got himself back together. That lap down was because he was one of the earliest drivers to pit to the wet tyres, but it has worked out for him. Well, he's going to have that challenge of the inter-driver, as Philip Harris is going to be given some breathing space. They're fighting over 9th place in Clubber, Harris and Prague, and then Denny Plug is a bit further behind, but NJK Sim Racing seem to be falling backwards here, as Kenyon does take the oval place off of him or thereabouts. The battles in club class definitely a little bit calm at the moment, although Dwayne Hoffman, you can see there he is currently only 3.5 seconds ahead of Max Dean, and Dean's campaign through the order continues, and he wants to try and chase down Dwayne Hoffman for the final top 5 spot in the class, although he's got a bit more work to do if he wants to try and take that. So let's see what he can do, and meanwhile we do take a quick look back in time to what exactly happened to Justin Hembery only a lap later after it went wrong for Leon Seeley. Now, this was Hembery for Daniel Newman of Racing Red, and the 369 on the exit curve there of Stavlo 2, and in the end the car lost traction, and that's how he went around there. The car rolling on around, and goodness me, the reactions there of the cars coming on through, I'm amazed there was no further contact with that one, because Hembery rolled right back onto the racing line. I don't think he had any control of the car going around on him, to be fair, but at the same time, he got it absolutely stopped right as soon as possible, and that is how in the end Richard Simnor snuck up the inside of him, as it's back to your live racing we come. And as we do, well, what else is happening out there? Justin Hembery's into the pit lane for a black flag. In fact, we've got several black flags, and Hembery's missing a front bumper on that car. So something's gone very wrong. I think there's been some contact for Hembery. We'll have to try and understand what's happened there shortly. Meanwhile, Nils Bauckhage has moved upwards. He's over Ben Woodgate here. And indeed, as the German driver exchanges blows with the British driver, well, Bauckhage gets back ahead for now, but they have got Jared Love right in front. Love looks okay, so I don't think Love's been doing something whatever's happened. I think the front there of Bauckhage's car has got damage. In fact, he's going to run wide. He's going to go spinning around there, coming through Radion, and in the end, does he get it stopped before it goes to the barrier? He just briefly touches the barrier at normal, I'd say, about 7 miles an hour, and the 331 driver is going to get away with that. That's going to be minimal damage to the car, but he has got a black flag for instant points, so he's got a drive-through that must be served within this lap or the next 2. Otherwise, it will be upgraded to what will be a stop-and-hold penalty. Benjamin Massey's into the pit lane as well, so he's been involved in an altercation of some description. Something big has happened. We just need to try and understand what's happened, but suddenly we're seeing several drivers being demoted down the order, and with what is our drivers that are being sent down, that's going to open up doorways for other drivers to move up, including Joris Peters-Veem and Richard Simnor. We're now going to be picking up even more places as a result of this. And this race keeps on giving us twists and turns like none other. Indeed, you could say that this is a soap drama at the moment, albeit the acting isn't fake and the driving is absolutely brilliant from these guys as they roll the way onwards. Well, meanwhile, we look back to 19th place. Here is your club leader of Adam Lynch at the moment, who's on the back of Luke Van Gertel and Ashley Coupland. And, well, coming down towards the Lecom sequence, well, Lynch is going to let Benjamin Massey up the inside of him, but the problem is the fact by doing so, is he at risk of being caught up to by James Fraser? Well, the answer to that question is no. When James Fraser currently is matching Lynch for pace, but he's 17 seconds behind. So it does mean at this point that Lynch could afford to lose 2 to 3 seconds a lap, and he still would be safe for the win of this race. But James Fraser right now, I think in second place, he'll happily take this. And Ashley Shucksmith, meanwhile, in the KFC Ferrari. Well, given how it started, and with that contact earlier on, and how it's ending at the moment, Shucksmith has literally resuscitated and revived this race. He has risen from the ashes like an eagle, because he's currently 3rd in club class. And next closest right is Christopher Petty, who's back in 4th, who started 3rd. Shucksmith here fighting with Adam Smith for overall position, goes up the inside, and he's going to try and make a move on the Mercedes drive. Does he get it done? They go a little bit wide, they touch a little bit, they'll get away with that. That'll be a 0x contact, because it will be the briefest of touches. And Shucksmith right now finding confidence where I think Smith is not, and Andy Jones is going to be on the back of this in 24th place, thinking how does he get involved, and the answer is he's going to have to send it into Pullman Bend if he wants to make this move sooner rather than later, and he will do so. And DSW Racing Blue Drive goes all in. Smith tries to hold it around the outside, but in the end finds the exit curve. Jones has a little twitch as he comes out of the first part of Pullman. On the second part, however, gradually builds up the throttle down the title line. You can't go full throttle, because otherwise he'll cause the rear tyres to spin up, particularly that rear right tyre will go round. He gets that together. Meanwhile, Mark Collicott on the back of Sam Hockley. Hockley trying to now bring this back together. He's on a bit of a mission to make his way forwards. Well, can Hockley hold off Mark Collicott for 8th place in the Interclass? He's doing a great job, is Sam, even though this race has definitely gone backwards as Nils Bauckhage comes into the pit lane as I look out my Conte booth window. Well, that's gone a bit wrong there for the German driver, but he drops down to, I believe, 14th place overall off camera. Boy, focusing on Hockley for a brief moment as he tries to keep Collicott, Petty and Cardozo at bay. And that's 8th in the Interclass and 24th overall, as he's pulling the gap on Collicott, who's now got the club and the pro drivers breathing down his neck. But Cardozo here is going to try and go up the inside of the club full place running. He'll do so there as Petty lets it go quite easily. And well, there'll be a change of foot for them. No real drama. But as things do calm down for a brief moment, we're going to take a look back at what happened to Nils Bauckhage, as we do believe he may have been caught up in a big incident on lap 20. Now, this was the privateer making its way onwards. Now, what exactly happened here? That was the Mercedes of Dane Newman Racing's, I believe. That was none other than the Mercedes sort of centre pit lane. And Bauckhage went deep there. And, oh, hold up a second. Front bumper came off the car there. That was your Mercedes of, unless I'm very much mistaken, which is trying to discern which one it was. I believe that was Justin Hembery's car. So I think Hembery had already picked up a black flag in that whole situation. And, well, in the end, as he made his way down, there was a car that went up the inside there. That was the DXT Motorsports Ferrari that cut the inside. And Hembery here, a tiny touch. Did that trigger the black flag? I don't think so. I think he was already on his way to the pits, but he hit the DXT car on the back. That's what lost the front bumper. And with that damage, he then towed to the pits for repair work. And that explains it all. So a very odd moment there. And, well, not a common one as we return to your live racing. That explains it all for now. Meanwhile, hold up, as soon as we go to replays, more drama at the front. Corey Price has lost the lead of this race. With 5 minutes to go, Tomlinson-Dennis now has taken the lead back. Raz Harper's in second and Price is down to third. Now, what's happened to explain it? We're going to immediately find out. We head back in time, and this is what happened to Corey Price. So this was Price by himself in the lead, leading by about 6 seconds, made his way through Blanchimont Bend, and the rear of the car just completely said no, and it can turn around. Even the very best of the drives out there hits the barrier as well, rolls back onto the road, but everyone makes the way around, and that explains the story. But we can't waste any more time in replays, ladies and gentlemen, because right now, Tomlinson-Dennis, your leader, he is your leader as you can see on your screen, but he's got Raz Harper closing on him very rapidly here. Harper right now, 4 minutes to go. They've got this lap plus another 2 most likely, and right now, in fact, it may only be one more after this one, given the length of the lap and how much time they spend on it, because they are lapping at the moment the 2-minute 40s. It's going to be nip and tuck when we get a 25th lap, but only 24 today. But right now, Tomlinson-Dennis under pressure, and Raz Harper, well, I don't know where this has come from. I think DDK Racing have literally set that Ford Mustang up for when it gets wet, as the rain has stopped falling, intriguingly. So therefore, this circuit will dry a little bit. It won't be going to slicks. We can promise you that with only 5 minutes or so left, ladies and gentlemen. But it will mean now this circuit will get dry and sunny. We will see the reverse of what's been happening, where the pace will start to build here, perhaps on the final lap a little bit, and the confidence levels may just rise. But of course, as you start to become more and more confident, you risk becoming overconfident. As there you can see, the rain going away a little bit on the camera shot. Well, they have got a lap down car, which will be coming up to very shortly. That is going to be the Porsche of, I believe, Rob Gregg. But I'm going to say all the way on through. And we do say hello to John Stapley there, who says, Mark, my wipers wouldn't work, couldn't see a thing. Well, unfortunate there, but meanwhile, for what is Tomlinson-Dennis, well, you see right now able to just get clear of Rob Gregg's car, and Raz Harper not having a very good run coming out of the Fangio chicane, and that gap reopening to 2 seconds there. So I think these two right now, they're both driving the limit, but Harper, for all the pace he does have, he's got a much more narrow window in terms of where he's got the pace of versus where he has not. But meanwhile, there's a change for the lead in the Interclass. Brad Pickett's got around just before. Is that Blanchimont Bend he's got around before? I don't believe my eyes if so. Well, as he gets up to speed, no, that is coming down through Paul Bend. I was going to say that didn't look right for Blanchimont, but Pickett's gone around, and Jared Love takes the lead here with what is only, we believe, 1 lap remaining now as Tomlinson-Dennis comes to line. Rain's falling on the start-finish line still. There's Raz Harper behind, so Tomlinson-Dennis has got a hold of for 1 more lap. Can Love bring home a second win in a row, or will there be more heartbreak right at the end of this race? We'll say it's not so. And, well, for Brad Pickett, we're not going to take a look back. He's had that spin up on Bend. We are going to stay to your live now, ladies and gentlemen, because we don't want to miss any last lap drama should any materialise. I think right now in the club class, Adam Lynch is looking very comfortable for that win. 14 seconds clear of James Fraser. But, of course, that with the half of the lap he's still got to go, then the final lap could be the difference. But right now, can Raz Harper find a way to close down Tomlinson-Dennis? He was at the start of this stint. He has recently, but that gap has reopened. It seems like every time that gap comes down, it gets bigger once again. And we're heading down towards the Lecom chicane. As you can see, Corey Price nowhere in this picture at the moment, and that's because Price 11 seconds back. There he is briefly at the right, at the top of your camera shot. So he's looking at third at the moment, at the very best here. We'll have to see what's to be as Harper still chase him. Meanwhile, Ville Kotonen and Nicholas Carlson, fourth and third in the interclass respectively, with Nils Bauckhage in what is 14th place behind, just following them around. And well, we can see Bobby Moss there. Right now, the SimRacing Collector's driver looking for a top 5, his first of the season. If so, the SimRacing Collector Esports driver has really been a bit of a hidden start. This one having started 14th in the class and has survived it all from 36th place overall as well. So it all seems to be gluing together very nicely for him. As Brandon Dyer's had a bit of a moment coming out of turn 7. There's Leon Seedy trying to gain the place back, but Seedy being a bit aggressive. They come into Ravage bend, goes deep. That's Dr. Line at this point. It's all over the back of Dyer. Well, we got to find a way, and as we ride on board here, Seedy thinks about into X-Bend, but then realises he's way too far back to be able to try and poke his nose into that space. And with Richard Simnos 16 seconds behind, he's definitely got plenty of opportunities to be able to go for it, but he's only going to want to try and make this move happen once. Well, coming through Put on Bends, they have got a Porsche in front of them. That is a lap down Porsche soon to be for them. That is Jack Giles. And, well, getting close to it, but it does seem as though right now they'll catch him. And putting an inopportune moment as here comes Seedy trying to use the lap down going car there to go around the outside of Brandon Dyer. This could work nicely for him, but Giles goes deep. Seedy follows him off the road and Giles has to go to the gravel. So Seedy can't quite make that work in the end. So unfortunate for Seely, but works out nicely for Brandon Dyer. But meanwhile, back to the very front we go with 15 seconds left on the clock. We believe this is the last lap, ladies and gentlemen, for Milton Tomlinson-Dennis. A second gap to Raz Harper. And well, what a race this has been as he makes his way into last bend. Will we see the checker flags? He comes through the last 2 quarters, or are we going another lap? Well, the time says 0. Do we get a checker flag here? No, we've got one more lap. We are doing 25 laps, so we're going one more. I don't think Tomlinson-Dennis is going to quite believe this. I don't think anyone's going to believe it. The fact they have added another lap on here, we are going to get the full 25 lap distance. And as Tomlinson-Dennis tries to hold off Raz Harper, when he's got to do it one more time, gap up to 1.4 seconds at line. But it's in these low speed quarters where Harper just finds so much more time. It's the complete opposite of what you perhaps expect between these 2 cars, but so it be. And as they make the way down right now, well, it's now going to be about one last tour on a circuit that is gradually drying. You can see a little bit of a dry line ease forward. I mean, it is a minor dry line. It's a minuscule one. That's as Harper gets it wrong. Coming out of Radion, it goes to the barrier for the DDK race Statbot driver. And suddenly was looking to be a dream charge of victory. Now, could it all be in pieces? Well, where is Corey Price? There is Price. He's going to suddenly see that he's gained massively on Harper as he makes his way down to the Kevin Straight. Can Harper carry on? He's going to try to. That knock to the barrier there. I'm amazed there's not a meatball flag on that car. Brandon Dyer, meanwhile, in full place right now. Well, he knows he's got the pressure here to try and keep Leon Seedy behind. Seedy all over the back of him again. 1.5 tenths they make the way onto the Kemmel Straight. Dyer's just going to hold that inside line and says, right, do what you dare. Go around the outside. I dare you to. And Seedy says, fine, I'll do it. And as he goes all in on the brakes, can he get it stopped? Bit of contact between the 2 of them, and he just about survives on the apex curve at turn number 6. But now here comes Dyer back at him. Seedy goes to turn in, but can he keep it around the outside? He can, and suddenly Leon Seedy finally gets that full place back that he's been hampering on about for the best part of 7 laps. But as he comes on down, well, Dyer's now going to try and stay with him if he can. But meanwhile, Raz Harper trying to hold on versus Corey Price. Price right now in a much cleaner Aston Martin in terms of the condition of the car. He's going to be looking at the inside to put on Ben. I don't think Harper's got a response to this other than just say if you can hold it around the outside. And Price in on that inside line. He's got to be so careful with the throttle in case the rear of the car starts to lift. And will make his way on through. He just cannot find a way on past. And right now, can Raz Harper just prove to be wide enough to cause Price the mother of all headaches? He's going to try it with the Vander chicane again. Harper puts the car in the middle of the road, and Price right now looking left, looking right, but it's not coming for him whatsoever. Well, he's going to try and go around the outside or dive at the inside into Stavlo. 1, 1, 2, and Harper just pins it to the inside. He's being really smart about driving. He's just saying to Price, go around the outside. If you've got grip, why don't you try it? And well, Harper now just simply puts it back in the middle of the road again in towards that curve to Paul Ferrier, and it's not going to work out at the moment at least. But meanwhile, back to your leader we go, ladies and gents, because he makes his way towards the final 2 quarters. This will be the last lap. This will be where we see the checker flag, and for Milton Tomlinson-Dennis took pole by 2 attempts, thought he'd come in too early to go to the wet tyre, but it was the right call for Samantha Tan Race's drivers. And as he makes his way to line for MTD, it's going to be 2 in a row for the STR driver as he takes victory in the end by 16.7 seconds or so, because Corey Price makes his way past. He's past Raz Harper into Blanchimon, and now Price is going to have to hold on for 2 more quarters. Can he bring it over the run-up spot? The answer is yes, he can, but he'll be ruining what could have been if it were not for that mistake. And Raz Harper just finishes behind on the podium, pro and overall. Leon Seeley, with an error, will recover to 4th place, but knowing the 2nd place was in his grasp at one point ahead of Brandon Dyer. Richard Simnor, meanwhile, well, how about this? Starting in 11th, it's going to come home in 6th place here. This is going to be a big score for the 342 driver DCW Racing Blue, who today really delivering the goods and makes his way to a line just ahead of Ben Woodgate. And then we will see Joris Peters-Sveen coming in 8th place, and behind him, Jared Love in the Interclass is going to make it 2 from 2. He survived where Brad Pickett did not, and he takes 9th place overall. And round off the top 10 overall, it will be another DDK with Racestat Bauckhage. It will be Elliot Court ahead of Brad Pickett, who comes on a home run-up today in the Interclass, knowing it was almost the win until a small error late on in the race. And then it'll be behind the Clarkson James with DXT driver Nicholas Carlson, who has found his way ahead of Nils Bauckhage, and also he's found a way ahead of his teammates Villa Catone, and he will round off the Interpodium with back-to-back 3rd places ahead of the NJB performance car. And then it will be Villa Catone who completes 4th in the Interclass ahead of Bobby Moss, who takes his first top 5 of the season. Well done to Bobby for that. 15th overall. Leighton Austin will come on through. There'll be Luke Van Gerton as the sun comes out. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it comes out for this man, Adam Lynch. And well, what a drive today. It went wrong at the Hockenheimring when the win seemed so close to his hands. But here, the 167 driver will get the job done. And for the privateer, it's been a job very much controlled by him all the way through. But what about Ashley Shucksmith? The club winner was absolutely brilliant, but for this man, came all the way from 44th from the starting grid, and the privateer in the KFC machine, he didn't chicken out from this one. It's all come clucking good, because he will make his way across the line, runner up in club just ahead of James Fraser, who's had something happen to him at the end of the race, I suspect, for Moonshine's Racing Club to lose out right at the end when he was so clear. But he rounds off the podium there in the 1399. It's the first podium of the season for him. Christopher Petty will come through shortly, albeit it goes a little bit deep there, as we've got a few more drivers coming through. Mark Colliquot, Adam Smith and Schubert Cardozo are seeing the finish line. But he comes to Christopher Petty because he was so close to a club podium today, but unfortunately the wet conditions switch just slip out of his hands there. He couldn't quite keep a grip of it. Adrian Howard was shortly coming through in 28th place with Daniel Newman racing red ahead of Dwayne Hoffman and Max Dean. Dwayne Hoffman taking 5th place in the club class, completing the top 5 there. And Max Dean coming all the way from the back of the field to finish 6th in club. What an effort from him, just ahead of Bradley Setters there, who will be your last lead that finisher in 31st place. But goodness me, ladies and gentlemen, what a race. And just before we take a look at those race results, we need to understand what exactly has happened to James Fraser right at the end. And here's a quick replay to explain how he got passed by Ashley Shucksmith. Here we go back in time. And keep in mind, he did pass him on lap 21 earlier on. It was on the final lap. Fraser was struggling a little bit here, and Shucksmith in the end had to go around the outside on the exit of Stavlo 2. And well, the Ferrari in the end just a bit more compact compared to the Porsche, and was too wide all the way out towards Blanchimont Bend. And did they go too wide all the way through it? The answer is not quite. Shucksmith did outpower the Porsche. That's how Shucksmith got the job done. So a key overtake right at the end of the race. And what about the battle between Harper and Price on that final lap? Well, as we saw Shucksmith take that move and defended Fraser coming down in towards the bus chicane, so no counter-attack could come. This was Corey Price taking the runner-up spot in the race, and won a similar manoeuvre on the back of Harper in his damaged Ford Mustang after that spin coming through Radion. Well, Price went up the inside, he threw it all in, he said, I'll risk it all, and Harper in the end tucked in behind, but could not get the traction out the corner, a little bit of oversteer, and that's how Corey Price was able to finish second in this race right at the end, as of course we were celebrating our overall winner of Milton Tomlinson-Dennis. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we head back to live circuit side pictures with the field hand come into the pit lane, and we take a look at those race results, subject to any stewards' inquiries. And goodness me, what a race we've had here. Round number 2 at the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps for the Superstars in Season 12 of the Thursday GT3 Championship, hosted by SimRacing International and iRacing, was full of excitement. It was full of drama. It had just a little bit of everything, and the wet weather definitely helped. But Milton Tomlinson-Dennis in the end helped himself to back-to-back victories for Samantha Racing. But here today, he made the call to come into the pits a lap earlier than perhaps the ideal transition point, but in the end, it was the right point to come in, and well, kept his call when others were losing their head, and was able to make it a victory by almost 17 seconds ahead of Corey Price. The Darkwing Racing driver will be gutted to have missed out on that overall win, but to be fair to him, also, at the same time, his first podium of the season, it can only go upwards from there, and Raz Harper, again, so much pace on the late stage that perhaps pushed just that little bit too hard, and fell to third place right at the finish for DDK with race stat bot with a huge shunt to the barrier. Leon Seeley, fourth there for Samantha Racing, unfortunately couldn't quite tame the beast of the wet weather compared to his teammate, but almost on the podium, ahead of Brandon Dyer for Altitude 3M Esports, and then we did see Richard Simnor 6th for DCW Racing Blue, ahead of Inter-Racing Team's Ben Woodgate, who was able to sneak ahead of Joris Peters and break away by 3 seconds almost at the end. Behind the privateer in his BMW was your inter-class winner of Jared Love for DDK with race stat bot, who in the end with Brad Pickett had a spin. He was there to pick up the win, with Elliot Court ran off the top 10 just behind as his teammate. Brad Pickett, second in the interclass, will be absolutely gutted to have thrown away that win when he was so close to it, but unfortunately it wasn't quite perfection today for the Clark St James with DXT driver, but you'll know there's plenty more rounds to go, and that win will come to him at some point. Nicholas Carlson completed the interpodium there, 12th overall, ahead of Nils Bauckhage, but we did see the Belf Racing Team driver in the end hold on to what was that third place ahead of his teammate of Villa Kotonen, who finished 14th, split by the pro driver, and well, the Belf Racing Team driver enjoying his run in the Flying Finn machine. Bobby Moss was just behind it in 15th place of SimRacing Collective Esports. It was Leighton Austin ahead of Luke Van Gertel only by attempts at line, with the NJK SimRacing driver ahead of Adam Lynch, your club class winner. The privateer definitely in, put it all together where it didn't quite work out in round number 1, with that second place in the end and missing out, but he didn't miss out on the party this time out. And then we did see Benjamin Massey and Ashley Shucksmith complete your top 20, with Shucksmith the privateer completing a run to second place in the club class. Outside the top 20 in 21st place, third of your club drivers with a late loss of pace, Moonshiners Racing Club's James Fraser, who was ahead of Andy Jones by 13 seconds. Now Sam Hockley, Mark Collicutt and Adam Smith who completed your top 25, with all 3 of those drivers having very sinusoidal races. Schubert Cardozo was 26th, just ahead of Christopher Petty, 4th in the club class there, frustrated to miss out on the podium, ahead of Adrian Howard and Dwayne Hoffman, who enjoyed himself out there, as we do say hello to him, all about the driver in the YouTube chat, and enjoyed himself out there, no doubt about it. And we also did see Max Dean just behind there, 3 seconds adrift, also enjoying a solid finish, even if he just missed out on the club top 5. Bradley Setters was your last lead lap finisher in 31st place of Relentless Racing, and it was a lap down to Rob Gregg, Philip Harris, Carl Roy, Jack Giles, Denny Ploger, Onno Prague, Chris Cole, Daniel Page and Alfred Kirstein. And outside at your top 40, we did see in 41st place Martin Brandon ahead of Stephen Kershaw, with Sean Clark taking 43rd in the end ahead of Ollie Smith. And then it was 4 laps down, unfortunately, for Martin Kenyon, 5 down for Ashley Coulter and Justin Hembery. And then we did see the retirements of Eddie Theobald, Charlie Walker, Jordan Butler, Dale Biggerdike, Justin Noel, Nathan Healy, Mikhail Abasek and Ross Young. We're going to the individual class finishing positions because this is where the points are made and paid. And as we saw in Pro, Milton Tomlinson-Dennis, they win in the end for Samantha Racing, but it came with a late twist in the tail, and Corey Price and Raz Harper both losing out. But a brilliant podium there of the STR, Darkwing Racing and DDK with race stat bot drivers, and just missing out on the podium was the other STR car of Leon Seeley. 2 seconds behind, Brandon Dyer for Altitude 3M Esports had all the pace in the dry, but in the wet, his Ford Mustang was hard to tame, ahead of Richard Simnor for DCW Racing Blue, who made some great progress late on in the race. Ben Woodgate, 7th there for the Inter-Racing Team, at one point really chasing down the top 5, but unfortunately couldn't quite keep it together in a late shunt between himself and Benjamin Massey, definitely spoiling his charge. Joris Peters 8th there in the BMW, that didn't seem to want to go forward in the wet or in the dry, but he did take a top 10, just ahead of Nils Bauckhage, and we did see the German driver there in the end holding on to 10th place, because he fell behind Elliot Court late on, who took 9th for DDK with race stat bot. Leighton Austin was 11th, just ahead of Benjamin Massey, and then we did see Andy Jones in 13th ahead of Schubert Cardozo, with Bradley Setters round off your top 15, and then it was a lap down to Chris Cole ahead of Daniel Page, 5 laps down to Ashley Coulter and Justin Hembery, and then we did see Charlie Walker 10 laps down with his retirement from the race, and 21st to Justin Noel, who retired just a little bit before. Then to the interclass we go, and as we head to the second of our 2 tiers of class, we saw Jared Love pick up the win today to make it 2 from 2. However, the DDK race stat bot driver did not lead every single lap, because Brad Pickett was definitely one of the drivers to lead most of the laps when it was wet, until the Clark St James with DXT driver had his late spin. He finished runner-up ahead of Nicholas Carlson, who completed the podium for Beowulf Racing Team, and just missing out on the double podium was his teammate of Villa Cotonum. Bobby Moss, 5th there for the SimRacing Collective Esports, will be very pleased to finish inside the top 5. He only qualified quite far down the order, and Luke van Goertel, after taking pole position in qualifying, what a challenging race it's been. In the dry, he was looking absolutely infallible, but in the wet, unfortunately, didn't work out. And I do believe also caught up in a bit of an altercation with some pro drivers in the early stage of the second stint, and that may explain why the MJK Sim Racing driver fell so suddenly. He was 45 seconds behind the winner, but to him, he was still the best part of over 30 seconds clear of Sam Hockley, who recovered to 7th. A brilliant recovery drive from Sam, head of Mark Collicott for DCW Racing Blue by 6 seconds in the end. It was a further second back to Adam Smith, Euro Titans Endurance, ahead of Adrian Howard, with Daniel Newman racing at a red drive. The last lead lap finishing in Inter, ahead of Kyle Roy, Alfred Kirsten, Stephen Kershaw, and Martin Kenyon, who all finished the race, at least one, if not more, laps down. And then behind the Clark St James with DXT drive, it was retirements for David Biggerdike, Nathan Healy, Mikhail Abasek, and Ross Young. Then to the club class, lastly, and what we got to see here was Adam Lynch take that first win, progressing from 2nd to 1st compared to the previous round, and the prior tier doing it the right way this time round. Meanwhile, Ashley Shucksmith coming roaring on through in the wet conditions there in his Ferrari, finishing 15.6 seconds behind. He'll probably be asking himself, what if I'd been able to qualify better? Could I have won it today? Well, James Fraser will be thinking, could I have potentially taken second today if it were not for the lack of pace in the Moonshiners Racing Club car, as the circuit started to dry up right towards the end and the wet times were starting to go away. But still, he's on the podium, just ahead of Christopher Petty, who in the end was a further, 26 seconds adrift. Behind the priority, it was Drain Hoffman, who rounded off the top 5 there for Full Tilt Virtual Motorsport, coming all the way through from the back end of the top 10 to round off the top 5, head of Max Dean, who was only 2 seconds behind. Rob Gregg was a lap down in 7th place for Moonshiners Racing Club, a double top 10 for the team today, ahead of Euro Titans Endurance pair Philip Harris and also Jack Giles. And then Denny Ploger completed that top 10 there for MJK Sim Racing ahead of his teammate Arno Pragd, and they did struggle towards the end. Pragd was best of the rest, ahead of Martin Brandon, with Sean Clark and Ollie Smith completing those a lap down. Eddie Theobald sadly was one of our retirees, as was Jordan Butler, and it all went to ground for both of them. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that's a rundown of the race results, subject to any Schwer's inquiries. And whilst our circuit has gone quiet, our broadcast, while it is going to go quiet, it won't go quiet for more than 5 minutes, because coming up in about 5 minutes' time will be our post-round interviews of our drivers. And I'll tell you one thing, ladies and gentlemen, the way the conditions were today, I think our drivers have got plenty of stories to tell, so let's not keep them waiting, and we'll be back as soon as we can. And it's lights out and away we go for our season opener as Sardply gets a good start, but look alongside him and you'll see there Milton Tomlinson-Dennis immediately going the attack into the braking zone. One drive into the grass already, that's Mikey Story, but 3 wide they come into the opening corner. That's a bold move there. William Humphrey makes the place as they make the way through in towards turn number 2. I think the Altitude 3M Esports driver here might just be fancying his chances once again as they come into the braking zone now for turn number 1, and as they make the way from right into left, well, Hayden Miller here side by side with him. They'll go all the way through to turn number 3, and Saunders does take the place there. That's for overall position, not for pro position. Saunders is the pro leader, but he goes a bit deep there at 3 to the inside of 4 then, and Miller right now enjoying this. Saunders enjoying it. A little bit of rub and contact between the two of them, but nothing wrong with a bit of bump and grind between the two Ford, the Ford and the Corvette, the two Americans I should say. And
with those two Evo drivers in front of them, because they're realistically in a completely different race, they're just a barrier up towards the likes of Rubino and Wendell. Oh, there's Rubino going off the road, and here comes James Bostock, past 1, past 2. It's a great little move from James.
Oh, and look behind him as well. Hardiak, up high, he decides to come back down low. But Denny Plurger has really lost a lot of ground here. He's lost 7 places since the start of this race in that green Porsche. It is, but look at this for the lead. Hammond wants it. He's gone back down the inside. He got off the brakes again to let the car down the inside of Rob Mackay. And you said Rob was going to be clinging on at the front. And now he's clinging on to second. Great move by Lewis Hammond. Really good committed stuff. And look, down the inside, Richard White. He wants a piece of this in the Porsche. He's got James Bostock.
And it's lights out and away we go here as Mirko Bortolotti goes exactly on the green, and as they roar the way down towards turn number 1, Martin Statman side by side with him, but look behind, Tim Perry under pressure, Miguel Leon immediately as the Enosis Esports driver tries to put the pressure on. Further back, we've got 3, 4 wide, they're all in the crush as they come through the opening bay. Look back for the rear of your second place runner, Statman, and Statman right now for the Gazex Racing team. What he's trying to do here, I think now, is just hold on to second, and if needed, he may have to act as a bit of a buffer and perhaps sacrifice a little bit of his race for the race leader here. Although Bortolotti, to be fair, I think might be holding some pace back, but here comes Lux in the tow, in towards what we roller coaster they come with the Virginian corkscrew. It's left into right very quickly here as they both make the way, and it's too wide on entry, but Lux gets ahead. It's up into second now, as it will be Martin Statman falling down to third, but Callum Lux does clear another one, and now only one car is between him and an opportunity of victory here tonight. Which is Perry going to make the move, or I'm going to have to make the move for him? Well, there's your answer. Perry's going to go on the inside here of Dean into the braking zone. Edwards gets to watch it from the popcorn seat view. Perry there being too wide on exit. Dean's going to try and hang around the outside. Does Edwards think about going up the inside as well? He gets himself ready for it in case there's contact, but there's not. Perry there being fair. Dean tucks back in behind. Lovely move there from Tim Perry. And I think Neil Beardsworth will hope they don't get close up in time as Beardsworth's going to look up the inside. He goes all in, and it's from very far back. He gets it stopped, however, and Beardsworth there nails the move, but Tillerson's going to come back at him up the hill. Does he go in on the brakes here? This is bold to do it on the inside. No, he does not. And Brian Beardsworth at the end, he gets involved. He goes out wide at turn number 6. Tillerson's going to be too wide with him, but too wide they're going to turn 7. Tillerson goes for the switch back there. 9 is no way through, and in the end they come down towards turn number 8. Well, there Tillerson backs off. He lets Hutchinson go around the outside, but is it the right call? Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, it is time to kick up our post-round interviews. And, well, we're going to be starting with a man who's found winning ways today in the wet, because joining me now in the interview room is none other than Adam Lynch. Adam, good evening to you. What a race. But in the end, you've converted pole position in the club class to a victory, albeit in some very treacherous conditions. You must be proud of this one.
Yeah, unreal race from me. Qualified pole. I knew I had the pace too. I wasn't very. Didn't think I was very fast coming into the week, and then I just started driving and it all just clicked. And I think I managed to do a 16, which is the best lap I've ever done on Spa, and yeah, good one. In the race, all I needed to do, I just knew pull away in the dry and then just keep the gap in the wet. And as soon as that wet came, I was like, yeah, I know what I'm doing here. However, I forgot the button for my wipers, so I was driving with a very wet windscreen for the whole second stint.
Crikey.
It was tough. It was tough.
I mean, to do it that way and then without the ability to really clean the water off your windshield, I mean, that's absolutely incredible the way you've put it together. But if we just go all the way back, of course, in Germany, we saw you in the end take the runner-up spot in an incredible collection of battles for what was first all the way through to 5th place in the club class. I mean, you fell just short of that win. Did you come here today thinking, you know what, if I can do 2nd place in round number 1, here today, I should be able to win this one?
Yeah. As soon as I knew my pace, especially on in race pace, I knew that I had potential to win, and it was just as soon as I knew that pace, was practice in the wet. So,
well, the pace was definitely shown, no doubt about it, and we saw you take that pole position in the end, and I do believe the pole actually coming quite comfortably in the club class. I just double check our time gaps. Well, I think you're on pole by the best part of none other than 2 attempts in a field that was very tight. Did you expect to be on pole, or do you think, you know what, there's some more time out there?
There was some more time out there. I think I was 6/10 up going into my last quali lap, and then going into the final chicane, there was a driver in front of me, and he just slowed me down on exit a little bit, and I lost about 3/10. So I think there was about another 3 to 4 tenths on the table. but happy with a 16.9, I think, which is what it was.
Or indeed, a very impressive lap, and like you say, a 2 minutes 16.9. And in the dry stint of the race, we did see you just gradually really gap the rest of the club field little by little, whilst they were all very close by comparison. Were you expecting, based on your qualifying pace, that you were going to naturally create a gap?
Yeah, I was just hoping that I had a few higher class cars behind me and the other drivers, just so I had a bit of a buffer between us, and that proved to be the case. And yeah, just eked out the gap throughout the stint. Drivers behind did overtake me eventually, but I managed to stay ahead of the drivers in club, and pitted, I think, 15 seconds ahead of them, so very nice.
Well, indeed, it was a comfortable pit stop for yourself. And in terms of the pit stop, we did see a few drivers decide to go quite early to play it safe. A few went later and gambled. Where were you on that spectrum? Were you happy to gamble, or do you think to yourself, play it safe on going to the wet tyre?
I think I left it one lap after the rain, so I think it's the lap that everyone else was pitting on mostly. I think the drivers in front of me, I think the drivers behind me also pitted on the same lap. And I think that was the right play. And practiced, tried early, tried later, and I think just in the middle after one lap was the right play.
Well, it definitely seemed to be the right play, and from that point onwards, we saw you just gradually make your way towards that victory. I mean, in a way, did it feel as though, you know, I don't need to push, but I need to drive at least somewhat aggressively to keep the heat in the tyres in these conditions?
Yeah, I think I had to push a bit more than I was wanting to at first, because James behind was pretty quick in the wet. I think he gained a few seconds and then lost a few and then gained more. I think at the end it was like 16 or something. So the pit stop kind of gave me that buffer.
Well, indeed, the pit stop gave you quite the buff, and you're able to bring home the win in the end by quite some margin. So a first win on the board. I mean, does this mean now the floodgates open, or are you expecting the competition to be a bit closer next time out?
Yeah, I definitely expect it to be a lot closer. In Mugello, it's not a circuit I've driven a lot of, so I'm hoping I can just practice there a lot. You know, it's fully dry, so I'm expecting it to be as close as Hockenheim. And just hoping I can keep myself at the top of the field and try and get gradual points to hopefully make a charge for the championship. But right now, it's just all focusing on doing what I can relative to everyone else.
Oh, fair play. Well, I think the adage is take it round by round and see what happens. But we look forward to seeing whether you can continue your run of podiums, at least at Mugello. But just before we do let you go, Adam, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast?
Just SRA again. Everyone really respectable in the league. I think I had one contact today, and especially in the wet, that's pretty good. Especially when I was getting overtaken by faster class cars in the wet, overtaking slower cars. You know, everyone keeping it respectful was great, and yeah, just a great league.
Well, Brad, we're very grateful to have you join me in the interview. No, not Brad, apologies. Adam, I should say. I've got the wrong name on the brain. And, well, it's great to have you with us, Adam, and joining me for an interview this evening. And, well, glad that you've been able to really enjoy the respectful racing out there in those very treacherous conditions. And we do hope to see plenty more from yourself at Mugello in a week's time and see whether you can make it back-to-back wins. But until then, savour the moment, enjoy this one, and have a lovely rest of your evening.
Thank you very much, Paul.
So here and there, ladies and gentlemen, from Adam Lynch. And, well, the privateer today, putting everything together. He didn't put a foot wrong. Whether it was in qualifying, delivering a very strong lap in the end, putting 2 attempts clear of the rest of the field. Alternatively, in the race itself, where he was able to just gradually gap his rivals. And he mentioned there the fact, prioritising making sure he did have drivers of another class between himself and the rest of the club field. And he did that perfectly. Pit stop wise came in on the lap that most drivers did come in. So one after when the rain did come on lap number 12. So therefore, it did mean for Adam, it was all about just making sure he didn't put a foot wrong. And whilst he did have a few drives trying to catch up towards the very end, and mentioned there, of course, was the rising tide of Ashley Shucksmith, who really was bringing that gap down. Well, given he'd carved out for himself the best part of almost a 20-second gap, by the time that Ashley Shucksmith was really able to deliver, it was way too late, and Adam Lynch was on course for that first win of the season. Mentioning he expects it to be back to normality at Mugello in a week's time, but we'll have to wait and see whether that's the theme. But at least he's got that first win on the board and now makes it 2 podiums in a row. And it does seem as though Adam Lynch is one of the complete packages out there in the club class, at least this early on. And he's going to be a difficult one to beat and unseat when we come to Italy. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we've got more interviews to come, so we're going to take a step back, and we'll be back for our second interview of the day very shortly. And so, ladies and gentlemen, for our second interview this evening, we go to the Interclass. And, well, I had Brad on the brain for good reason, because joining me now is Brad Pickett, our Clark St James with DXT driver. Brad, I think we all feel for you, leading at the end in the Interclass, a late spin, and it all falls apart, but still second. So it is a first podium of the season, but something tells you right now you're gutted.
Yeah, it was just, honestly, I don't know. I was having a pretty decent race. I've not really done much weather at all on iRacing, to be honest. So I was quite surprised with the pace I had, and I just got mixed up with a couple pro cars that gave me some rear end damage, and after that it got really difficult, and that's why I lost it on entry there.
Well, it was unfortunate at the end, but let's talk about all the positives along the way to a bit of misfortune. Firstly, qualifying. We saw you qualify 20th overall, 5th in class. I mean, the Ferrari seemed to be struggling a little bit in qualifying, but you seem to be finding a way to get some pace out the car.
Yeah, to be fair, I've done a nice amount of practice for it this week, and Spa, I do love the track, and I was just hooking it up quite nicely. I've definitely had a few more temps in there compared to practice, but I was quite happy with where I was, to be honest.
Well, happy with the lap, and then going into the race itself. I mean, it did look as though, in a way, you perhaps set yourself up more for what was the wet conditions that would come rather than the dry conditions we started off with. But you weren't afraid to go into battles on the opening few laps, including with Jared Love.
Yeah, we had a decent time of it, really. I kind of wanted us to just kind of stay with the pack, but he made the first move, and it was kind of on from there. And I thought, to be honest, P1, he seemed like he was quite far in the distance at that point, so I was like, we may as well have a nice battle between ourselves. And yeah, it kind of went all the way through the race. I was always watching, seeing where he was, and he was always within a few seconds. It's quite a lot of fun.
Well, you two enjoyed the battling, no doubt about it, and that battle did come back to a degree later on. But when the rain did come, we know this Ferrari can be quite capable in the wet. How would you work out your strategy? Were you planning to go as late as possible in regards to the pit stop? Because you did come in on lap 13 a bit later than some.
Yeah, to be honest, I didn't quite expect the rain to be that bad, like that quick. So I was running a dry setup for starters, and then I basically saw a bit of rain come in. I was like, it felt fine. I went through like Eau Rouge, and it was like basically flat still, even though people were pitting. I thought I'll probably stick out for one more. And then, yeah, as I got to like coming into the last sector, it just got very hard to keep it under control. So, yeah, I popped into the pits to put the wet tyres on.
Well, the right call then. And then going into the wet conditions, we saw the rain keep coming down. And as someone who hasn't had too much experience of driving in the wet, as you mentioned earlier, what were the things you were looking out for? How did you adapt? Because you were lightning quick in the wet.
Yeah, to be honest, I've only really got into iRacing as of December properly. So there's not been any wet races that I've taken part in. There was a couple in like the Porsche Cup car. So I've had a little bit of experience from there. And I don't know, I come from a sim drifting background, and I do feel like that helps me in the wet conditions, because I just usually can catch the slide quite well until the end typically. But yeah, I was just looking at the lines people were taking. I was kind of going a bit offset with them, and I was well in the mix with the pros, to be fair.
Oh, fair play. Well, that drifting experience definitely working out for yourself, and, well, some experience on an effective skid pan of the circuit today. You took the lead in the class then, and we're definitely heading towards a first win of the season, but it all went a little bit wrong towards the end. Was it perhaps a bit of overconfidence, or was it perhaps just not having enough confidence at that point, given the circuit was starting to dry a little bit?
To be honest, I was pretty comfortable until, like I say, I got a little bit of rear damage, and it was just then every time on entry to most corners, it was just wanting to go, and I almost caught it. Was sliding, it kind of corrected itself, and then I just touched the outside curb, and once you hit that, it was game over. But yeah, I mean, is what it is. I could have been worse. I think I've recovered quite well, considering I could have lost plenty of positions and got the damage. So I'm still happy with a P2, to be fair.
Oh, 100%. I think that's the best way to look at it. Be happy with the result, and particularly proven that with limited exposure to the wet conditions on iRacing, you've proven to be a master of them in some respects immediately. So a first podium, almost a win. We head to Mugello in a week's time. What are the home circuits for your Ferrari? Can we expect you to be on the podium there?
Yeah, well, I'll give it my best go. I've not heard many good things about the Ferrari in these sorts of tracks, but I'll have to give it a go for myself. I heard a lot of things about that with Spa, and it turned out to be all right. So I'll give it my all, and yeah, hopefully at least get back up on the podium again and go for P1.
Oh, we'd absolutely love to see you on the podium, if not going for that first win of the season once again. But Brad, just before I do let you go, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast?
To be fair, I'll give a shout out to Ross Young. He was in the race too, and he unfortunately had a bit of an incident early on, and he was spotting for me through the race, so that was quite nice of him, and yeah, it was quite helpful actually.
Oh, well, I get the feeling he'll definitely appreciate the shout out there. And it's very kind of Ross to jump in when it all gone wrong for him to make sure he supported you all the way through to the end. Well, with that, Brad, it's been an absolute blast to have you join me in the interview room. Congratulations on your first podium of the season. Not quite the win, sadly, but I'm sure it's going to come sometime soon. Keep at it, and we'll see you at Mugello. But till then, have a lovely rest of your evening.
Yeah, thanks, mate. Appreciate that.
So here and there from Brad Pickett, ladies and gentlemen, and well, crazy that, coming from a sim drifting background, and I think that's definitely a big asset in his toolkit with regards to being able to drive in those wet conditions, even though he hadn't had too much practice in them. Unfortunately, a bit of damage to the car towards the end made it harder and harder for the car to be driven the way he wanted it to, and then the rear let go just towards the end, but on reflection, as he did mention the fact, it could have been far worse. He could have lost more places than just the one, albeit such a pivotal one when you lose the lead, but second place, a first podium of the season, and we're going to try and prove everybody wrong with regards to the Ferrari. Everyone said it doesn't seem to be the right car for this season, but right now he's definitely trying to show it is a good car for this season, and with that podium, with some big points coming his way, and a Mugello who's going to give it his all to see if he can make another podium come his way, if not that first win, and we look forward to seeing Pickett try to prove the doubters wrong. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we've got one more interview to come by the looks of things, and coming up shortly, we're heading back to the club class. And so, ladies and gentlemen, we make our way to the club class, and joining me now in the interview room is none other. In fact, I'm going to go to his interview room because I'm going to be joining none other than Dwayne Hoffman. Dwayne, good evening to you. What a race today for yourself and the FTVM team. I mean, it was up, it was down, it's around, but in the end, a top 5 from a 15th place start. You must be over the moon with this. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I think we might be having a slight technical issue. I don't know if we're hearing from Dwayne at the moment.
Hold on 1 second. I think we're good now.
There we go. Go on, Dwayne.
Good afternoon, everyone, from 22 Celsius sunny Franklin, Kentucky. The Full Tilt Virtual Motorsport Sim Magic Rot Solid Rig Phoenix 10 livery design powered by Dr. Gyro Lamborghini today. If we were to rate the race, setup 10 out of 10, strategy 10 out of 10, driver 8 out of 10. We did everything we could. We knew we did not have quality pace, but what we had was guile. So Nathan and I put our rain wing on the car in the dry to save us 10 seconds, and that actually really paid off as we were able to not stress very much with maintaining a gap with Max at the end. We had done our homework and very, very satisfied with backing up last season's rain-stricken VIR drive, where I drove reasonably well in the rain as well.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, the progress we got to see from yourself and the team today compared to the VIR drive was notable. And interesting you should say about the gamble there of setting up the car more for the wet conditions rather than the dry conditions. We did see quite a few drives in the club class go the other way. I get the feeling, in a way, you had to be very patient in that opening stint then, knowing you're pretty much starting from the very back of the field, but the race would come to you at some point.
Well, I feel bad because I've sped through the broadcast and I went, they only showed one of my great overtakes as I'm charging from the back. What we discovered is when the track evolution hit at the end of qualifying was, well, heck, this is basically a near wet track anyway. What's stopping us from adding some wing? And Nathan and I, we had a strategy. Jordan was going to be our rabbit, and we were going to work our way through. So, analogous to EIR, we knew that about 25 minutes in, we would be able to spring the surprise. And we did. The car was fantastic. I could drive it anywhere with the extra wing. I could pass on the outside. I had better braking than the other cars because they were trimmed out. So if you get into the bus stop with that extra wing, we could calmly overtake and get about our business.
Oh, most definitely. And we could see that in the end as you gradually did progress up the order and the wet weather really continued. And so after the pit stops, having the ability to pretty much drive where others could not. I mean, the progress just kept on coming in the end.
Yeah, I mean, we had driving the Lambo in the wet is an adventure raised to the adventure power. It is a very lively car. So for those watching stream, to give you an idea of how tricky it was, in the Eau Rouge Radillon complex, I was downshifting 2 gears because of the river of water. And what people don't grasp is that is an off-camber corner going up the hill. We were downshifting 1 gear into Blanchiment. We were downshifting an extra gear into Pouhon. But we kept gradually moving forward. In terms of SRI GT3, this is by far my best drive. I'm very content with getting the big things right to where all I had to do was drive the car.
Now, whilst you may have got many a thing right, you did say in terms of how you would rate your race, you gave yourself an 8 out of 10. Where were you missing the 2 points?
Well, I don't think you caught on camera, but we got about 5K too deep into Eau Rouge. And the way that I was having to throttle it is hit the front to bite, and just when the car started going uphill in 3rd gear, and I had a little bit of a lazy spin, but because I had spun so early on the hill, I was able to use the endurance pit lane, calmly come back up to speed, shrug my shoulders and go, well, I was due a spin in the wet anyway. At least there's no pressure. I got plenty of time front and back. That is where the 2 points deduction is. But better than the VIR rain race, I only gave myself 6. I was not good strategically in that race. This one was much better.
Oh, fair play, and I appreciate you filling us in at what we may have missed there for those missing 2 points. But with a first top 5 of the season and the progress looking there, can we expect you then to be looking to at least chase another top 5, if not perhaps a podium next time out at Mugello?
Candidly, Mugello is a very difficult track to set up for. And the reason for that is the simple decision of how much downforce do you put on the car? Do you sell out for the gigantic front straight? Or do you set the car up for what would be sectors 1 and 3 where you need mechanical grip? So I do think that you are going to see pandemonium at Mugello just because in sector 1 you have 2 fast chicanes that lead you to the very nice sweeping complex, which is my favorite part of Mugello. But then you're back out the grind of fast chicane, hairpin, fast chicane toward the end of the lap. So I think the critical thing that full tilt we have to get right is at Mugello, similar to here, is we need to get our cars forward. It is not a track that does race all that well from the back. And I think the other part of it is we're due for a little bit of luck. Nathan works very hard at this, and he really deserves a better result than he's received. Jordan has the talent. He just needs to get everything lined up for the good result. And then myself is really keep doing what I've been doing. We missed the setup at Hockenheim badly. And so this definitely acted as a redemption race. But, you know, instead of calzone and tortellini, like we had at Imola for GTE, at Mugello, I'm going to suggest a good, healthy linguine and a pizza. Because I think next week, like I said, it's going to be very chaotic.
Oh, brilliant. I'm loving the food analogies there, and I hope we do get to grab multiple slices of the action. With that in mind, Dwayne, of course, just before we do let you go in preparation for the next round and also to celebrate the successes of today, is there anyone you would like to give a shout out or a thank you to on the broadcast?
Well, today I'm going to be a little selfish, Paul, and that is to 4 very special humans who have pushed the envelope of humanity just a little bit further. And my mind is with Artemis 2. Tomorrow they have the really hard part, and that is to get back home. And so my mind and my spirit has been with them. And for all, my passing thought will be this. Sometimes it is good to simply be in awe and wonder.
Oh, fair play. I think a very valid passing thought there, as indeed you've been looking to the stars. Many of us have with the Artemis 2 mission, and well, we've definitely seen your championship take lift off today. We look forward to seeing whether it can lift off as well for your teammates next time out at Mugello. But with that, Dwayne, thank you for joining me this evening for interview. Well done on your first top 5 of the season. Savour it, enjoy it, and have a lovely rest of your day.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, everyone.
So hearing there, ladies and gentlemen, from none other than Dr. Dwayne Hoffman, the club driver for Full Tilt Virtual Motorsport, who today definitely had to go the distance, but the team got it absolutely spot on there with regards to the setup of the car. And whilst we did see it not be the right setup on the car for a dry pole lap necessarily, starting all the way towards the back, whilst we didn't catch too much of what was going on towards the rear of the field with regards to the 142 Lamborghini, it was picking off places left, right and centre on the opening stint. And so, moving forward as rapid as that, when the circuit definitely saw the rain come, going from what was a relatively cool circuit already primed for the wet conditions to one that saw wet conditions on it, well, with Dwayne Hoffman, in the end, really it was a situation whereby the world was his oyster. Albeit a small spin, getting the lazy spin out of the way early on the stint meant he didn't need to do another spin later on. And, well, 5th place is where he'd finished, 29th overall. Pleased with it, but knowing there's a little bit more out there perhaps. Although expecting at Mugello, it could be back to a bit of a struggle, but hoping that his teammates have some better luck, particularly for Nathan Healy, putting in a lot of effort, however not rewarded in the first 2 rounds. And also to see Jordan Butler with the talent out there, but can the talent match match up to the results. Well, we'll see how all three of them do next time out at Mugello. But indeed, Full Tilt Virtual Motorsport have got their sights set on much higher stakes than just a good result in a single round or race. But with that concludes our interviews for this evening, ladies and gentlemen, and let's give you a quick recap of who we've spoken to tonight. So we've only had 3 interviews this evening. I think a lot of our drivers opt in to go back to the garages there and get packed up and make the way out of a very wet Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps at the moment, and perhaps exhausted from the driving today. But we heard firstly from Adam Lynch in the club class, telling us about his story of victory, indeed his first win of the season, and making it a double podium now after his second place last time out at the Hockenheimring. We then came to Brad Pickett for Clark St James with Dexterous Motorsports, and the interclass driver talking about the fact there was almost a win, and given his relative inexperience in the wet, well, he definitely pulled off a magical result, even if he couldn't quite take the win with damage to the car, seeing it finally let go when it was already on what was tendrils. We then spoke to Dwayne Hoffman for Full Tilt Virtual Motorsport, and the club class driver round off our interviews there were a profound fault with regards to the Artemis 2 mission. On a mission of his own today to get the setup right, did exactly that, and the driver almost got it absolutely perfect as well, minus a small spin, but a 5th place finish converted from a 15th place start. And I'll tell you one thing right now, Dwayne's always one to watch out for as the rounds do go on. But a big thank you to all 3 of them for their time for an interview this evening, and with that, ladies and gentlemen, it's now time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed today's show, and perhaps you're sat there right now wanting to know how you can get on the grid here at SimRacing International, particularly if you're a GT3 fanatic or you prefer something a little bit different, more on that shortly, well, of course, the best way to get on the grid with us at SimRacing International is join our official Discord. Invite link at the bottom of the screen. And when you do, well, on Thursday evenings, as you've been tuning to one side of the coin today, and that's been the Superstar split of our Thursday GT3 Championship Season 12, and you also do have the Masters there. But if you want to go racing on Fridays, we do have our GTE Championship. We make our way back to 2023 and we bring to life the Grand Touring endurance cars that were retired in favour of GT3, and that's currently in its 2nd season, making its way into round number 3 later this week. Alternative, if you're a bit more of a weekend warrior when it comes to road racing and you do love your GT3 package, well, you do have the UK Sim Racing Sunday GT3 Showdown, which is, of course, the Sunday series in its 18th season. Alternatively, if you want something far more casual, perhaps you're just looking for a relaxed atmosphere to bring yourself up to speed, particularly if you are a rookie or a veteran returning to the racing, we do have 3 free races per week in our practice league that runs on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Saturdays. So the truth in all is, there's never been a better time to be on the grid here at SimRacing International. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we also need to take a moment to say a big thank you to our series and league sponsors, who do include Carmate, More Than Technology, the GP2 Group, and lastly, as always, we must give a shout out to Motorsport UK's esports division for recognising us as a recommended community here at the SimRacing International community. We're very grateful to that recognition, and long may it continue as we make our way throughout 2026 and beyond. But with that, we now turn our attentions to next time out, and next time when we make our way to Italy for the Mugello circuit. However, we are going to be slightly changing up the schedule with regards to the broadcast. The racing will be on Thursday, the 16th of April, as it would be on a given Thursday. Don't worry, we're not moving the date around for our drivers, but because of a slight scheduling clash with regards to the availability of broadcasting teams, we will be bringing the broadcast as if it were live from Mugello in round number 3 on Monday, the 20th of April, so you will need to wait a little bit longer. It will be a post-round broadcast from circuit side. It will not be live, but we will be bringing it up to speed with all the story there a few days after the fact of the racing, and we can promise you, ladies and gentlemen, much like our pre-season event, where it may be a post-round broadcast, but it's not going to lose any of the flavour and the excitement throughout. But the story after today, of course, is in a wet and challenging Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps. Well, we've got to see Milton Tomlinson-Dennis make it 2 from 2 in pro and overall, and right now the man is looking to be unstoppable. Even when others get ahead of him, he still finds a way to finish at the front. Meanwhile, in the interclass, we have seen none other than Jared Love make it 2 from 2, but not without a significant challenge from Brad Pickett and some of his other rivals, including the ever-threatening presence of Luke van Goertel in the dry. And as for the club class, well, Adam Lynch now from 2nd to 1st. That's how his results have gone. So surely, can he make it a win streak that begins in round number 3? Or will his rivals be able to strike back, given the class is so closely matched? Well, for all that and more, come tune in next time as we continue the story of the Superstars edition of the Season 12 of the Thursday GT3 series at SimRacing International. But until then, we've been SimRacing International. I've been your host and commentator, Paul Walsh. You've been tuning to Paul's Production. And until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, remember to stay on track. Good night.